in Richmond. He's a little bit ago. Can't think of his name either.
It's not the guy that lives on the street.
Yeah, I think it was him down at the garden.
It's like a ham radio guy.
No. He used to be the town sergeant. He used to be the town sergeant.
Ed, what's his name?
No, wasn't Ed. He was like town sergeant for 30 years, right?
Well, Ed was town sergeant for about that, yeah.
Ed did.
I forget his last name. He was town sergeant for years.
Sarah? Who was the town sergeant before us?
Before Keith.
Before Keith. Like for 20 or 30 years.
Edward's last name.
You're right. It is Edward.
Hey, who cares right now? All rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We observe a moment of silence for our troops, wherever they may be. Thank you very much. Okay, Council, on the resolutions and proclamations, number one, we'll need a motion.
If it's okay, Council, we'd like to postpone this for the item number one, presentation resolution number 2017-12, honoring Walter Prescott from Monday, saying you could be here tonight, and it'll probably be to the end of October, which will be the last meeting of the month, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
I think the first meeting.
The first meeting? So I'll just say we'll postpone it to one of the October meetings. That's a motion.
I second that.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you. And number two. This is a resolution supporting the goals of the Rhode Island Energy Challenge. And I believe we have an invited guest here this evening by the name of Melinda Howard. And she's going to tell us about this.
Very briefly, and this is my colleague, Stuart, and if you vote to participate in the program, the two of us will be working here with you. We work for Smart Power, which is a national nonprofit marketing firm. We've been in business for about 15 years and work exclusively in the area of green energy and energy efficiency. And National Grid hired Smart Power to execute this campaign in the state. We have worked so far with 12 communities, some of the major employers in Rhode Island, and including Blue Cross Blue Shield, Raytheon, Fidelity Investments. We've worked with most of the chambers, and in the towns of Warwick, North Smithfield, Newport, North Providence, Central Falls, Providence, Charlestown, Narragansett, Tiverton, Little Compton, Barrington, and Bristol. And last year for this program, we won one of 6 Clean Energy Awards from the Environmental Protection Agency. And we were really proud to get that because there was a little Rhode Island there with Texas and California and New York, and we won one of the 6 awards. So, so that's who we are, and I want to leave you with just one thing. Think about the fact that right now, America is the most energy efficient it's ever been. And I'm going to turn it over to Karen.
Thanks for having us here tonight. I'll tell you a little bit about the Rhode Island Energy Challenge and what the goals are. The Rhode Island Energy Challenge will work with the town of Richmond and residents to achieve 3 goals. The first goal is to improve upon the number of no-cost home energy assessments in the town over last year. No-cost home energy assessments are available through the Energy Wise program from National Grid, and there are many benefits to them for residents, and they can save energy and money. So Smart Power would create an outreach plan to engage residents, educate them about the benefits of home energy assessments, and to increase that participation over last year. So that's the first goal. The second one would be to hold a special energy efficiency event in the town. something exciting, something that involves the residents, maybe the schools, to get people engaged about energy efficiency, so that it kind of spans the generations, so they can understand a little bit more about it. And the third goal is to help the town form an energy task force. This can be a group of diverse residents who just are interested in energy efficiency, energy issues, and along with that, to help create an energy plan or a draft energy plan, at least for this year, going into next year. So if we're successful in achieving those goals with you, you'll be able to get a $10,000 grant from National Grid to be used for a town project related to energy efficiency. And that's for any town participating this year. So we're very excited to work with Richmond, and we hope to help you achieve your goals.
So right now we're working with Cumberland, Smithfield, and North Kingstown. So Richmond would be the final municipality that we're talking to this year about working with the program. And a lot of people ask me why we need to do this. So if you remember a couple of minutes ago, I said we're the most energy efficient as a nation that we've ever been. And right now, we spend $2 million a minute in the United States on energy, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So there's still a lot of work to do. And we hope to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Council, any questions?
You mentioned that you would be reaching out to the residents. How would you do that?
We work with you, number one. We don't go door to door. We work with community organizations, the schools, houses of worship, civic organizations, to get the message out to residents. And it really is a community by community plan that we put together. So last year we were in 6 communities, and no 2 campaigns were alike. What works in Bristol doesn't work in Barrington. So it's really tailored to your community, and it's not meant to be intrusive, and it doesn't have to be. People, by and large, are very excited to learn how to save on their energy bill.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Is it kind of like where you ask the homeowners if they're interested in doing like a home energy audit type of thing?
That's one part of it. But we want to also educate overall in energy efficiency and talk about other programs. We don't sell anything. So we want to talk to people about saving energy. And when I started to work for this organization, my son and I are the only ones at home now, and our energy bill was $90 to $100 a month. We did the things that year that we were prescribing for this program, and our energy bill went down to around $60 a month. So that's almost $400 a year. And it cost us nothing to do that. We didn't have to go out and buy one thing. And we didn't have to change our lifestyle a lot.
No brainer.
Can we quote you on that?
Yeah.
These 3 goals that were mentioned, you'll be working in tandem with the town administrator here to put forth those goals for the town of Richmond to achieve, right?
Right.
Is that the way it's
And we would love to work with your town administrator. And normally we go into a town council meeting and we have kind of an idea of what percentage of residents got in home energy audit last year, so we can talk about increasing it. However, you have so many villages and zip codes, we couldn't figure it out. So, that's the first thing we're going to have to talk about is how to figure out where Richmond really is.
People are eligible every 3 years for a home energy assessment. So any new residents would be eligible, someone who had one maybe 10 years ago, because the technology is different now. So every year, a certain percentage of Richmond residents have an audit. We're trying to increase that. So participation is better this year than it was last year.
Yeah. And the average resident saves 35%, so when it's all averaged out, on their energy use, which is good for the environment and good for their family budget. So
Is this like the RISE program that was around a few years ago?
it is, yes.
And you do a thermal image of the home and all of that?
They will come in and do that, absolutely. How many members of the council have had a home energy assessment in the last 3 years? Okay.
One last year.
So we have 4 eligible home energy assessments.
Well, I had one about 7 or 8 years ago.
Well, you're,
Rise
To
came
me,
down.
it's been about 20.
you're definitely,
Yeah, Rise had come down and they did one back in about 7 or 8 years ago.
so, any other questions?
I think we're all set.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so
very
much.
much.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the council?
I'd like to make a motion to approve or to accept the resolution 2017-13 supporting the goals of the Rhode Island Energy Challenge.
Second.
Okay, so the motion was made and seconded to do this, and if we accept this, then we are on our way to save a lot of electricity, I guess, I hope. And with that would come a $10,000 grant, a possible $10,000 grant for our energy efficiency upgrades. So I think that's a pretty good bargain.
Yes.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. So there you go. So
Excellent.
we're ready to go.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next order of business is public hearings, and we need a motion to get going.
Motion to open public hearing, item number 01, petition by Energy Development Partners, LLC, for text amendments to the zoning ordinance to allow solar energy systems in the R3 zoning district.
If I may,
Well,
Karen, do we have to hold off on this public hearing through the advertisement? This is the one, what? This is the one that was advertised for 7 PM?
Yeah, just out
We
of
do
an
it last
abundance
time.
of caution, just in case someone saw the ad and it said 7 o'clock and they're interested, but they're not planning to be here until 7,
Okay,
it would probably be a good idea to postpone this item on the agenda,
okay.
do a few more items, and then come back to it at 7 o'clock.
do we need to do all the public hearing, hold them all off till 7, or just this
No,
one?
the other ones are advertised for 6.
So therefore, I withdraw my motion.
And you have to make another motion to postpone it?
Do we need, no, we can just
Yeah,
wait till,
you can, yeah, you make a motion to.
we can't just wait till 7 o'clock?
No, you have to do
Next on
something
the
between
agenda.
now and 7
Make a
o'clock.
motion to postpone petition public hearing 01 for the petition of the Energy Development Partners until at least 7 o'clock.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, it's the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. So that'll bring us to public hearing number 2.
I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing on item number 02, consideration of a request from the town solicitor to repeal chapter 3.80, exempting or stabilizing taxes on qualifying used for renewable energy products of the town code ordinances, adding chapter 3.55, taxation of commercial renewable energy systems.
Could you repeat that motion again, please? No, I'll second it.
Do you know who I am?
Is there a second?
Okay,
A second?
did.
I did.
Okay, you second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is open. And I think Karen's going to explain and give us a brief overview of what this is all about.
Yeah, this is pretty simple and self-explanatory. The ordinance that we currently have for taxing solar energy systems is obsolete. It's been replaced in the general laws by a different one as a result of a Rhode Island Supreme Court decision in 2016. And the ordinance that I'm suggesting that you adopt would allow us to tax solar energy systems according to the regulations that have been developed by the state. If we don't pass this ordinance, we don't have the authority to tax them at all. So that's what the effect of the ordinance is.
So the previous methodology of taxing them, like we did on Stilson Road,
Right,
would no longer be available to us,
Right.
right? That would be a dead issue.
yes,
But this would bring us up to date,
right,
and we would be able to do that again.
right.
Or explain to me, if you don't mind, that $5 per kilowatt hour nameplate capacity.
Way beyond my pay grade.
Oh.
All I could, actually, the applicants for the zoning ordinance amendment probably can explain it to you at 7 o'clock. But each of these solar energy systems that's connected to the grid has a nameplate capacity, the amount of energy that they can produce and sell
Right,
to
yeah.
the grid. And the tax is based on that.
And so that $5
Rather than
tax.
on an assessment by the tax assessor of the value of it, or something
Okay.
like that.
That's above and beyond the tangible tax?
This is the tangible tax.
That is the tangible
There-
tax.
But
Previously,
it's
there was,
above and beyond the tax on the land.
Okay, the tax on the
The
land.
land,
Yeah.
the tax on the land doesn't change, that's the same.
Right,
This is just the tax on the equipment.
the equipment.
Yep.
Okay.
is it tax on equipment or a tax on the production?
It's a tax on the equipment, but it's based on the amount of production. I think
It
that's the
seems
best
almost-
way to.
Seems
say it.
almost
That's the way I
counterproductive.
understood it.
In my opinion, it seems almost counterproductive. We're trying to encourage people to go with renewable energy and trying to get them to invest in an expensive technology, and then we're gonna tax them on it.
Well, this is a compromise. I believe it was proposed by the League of Cities and Towns after the Supreme Court decision. There were some people who wanted no tax, and there were some people who wanted to go back to the old system of imposing whatever tax that the town wanted to impose. And as a compromise, they agreed that that the state could develop regulations that would apply uniformly in every city and town, which gives the owners of these systems some kind of predictability in how much tax they're gonna have to pay over a long period of time.
It just, I understand the thought process behind it, but it just seems almost counterproductive. It's like taxing the internet after we develop it, or any new technology that benefits us, all of a sudden we begin taxing it. What was the gist of the Supreme Court decision?
When you go south on Route 4, and you're right near the Home Depot and the Stop and Shop and the Starbucks, and you look over to your left, there's a big windmill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's in someone's backyard. They own it. And one day they opened their mail and they got a tax bill from the town of North Kingstown for $1.9 million. So they were kind of shocked.
Right.
And they challenged that, and they went all the way up through the tax assessor, the Superior Court, and the Supreme Court, and their argument was manufacturing property is tax exempt, and this is manufacturing property.
Right.
It had always been taxed by all of the cities and towns. And they said, well, it's manufacturing property, and the Supreme Court agreed with them. So because of that loss of tax revenue by a number of communities, the League of Cities and Towns went to the General Assembly and said, you know, let's come up with a compromise so that we can restore at least some of this tax income that all of these cities and towns are going to lose.
I think the $5 fee is far more appropriate than the $1 million some odd dollars,
Yeah.
don't you?
I
Can't hear
do.
you.
I said, I think the $5 fee is a lot more appropriate than $1 million.
Okay. I just was curious.
Now, that is the state that come up with that rule and regulation now.
Right.
And
It's
this
a regulation that's already been
This
adopted
is
by the
emulating
state.
that.
So it's
Yes.
allowing us to do it. It doesn't mean we're gonna do it per se, but it's allowing us to do it.
Yeah, it does mean that we're going to do it, yeah.
Right. Okay.
So it does mean we're gonna do it, or doesn't?
Yes, it does.
What?
Right now, we don't have any solar facilities built that we could tax using this method. I think the only one we have is the Stilson Road one, and that still comes under the agreement that we reached with them a
Right,
few years
yeah.
ago. But it would apply to any new ones that are built from, from now on.
Would that apply to the one that's being built right next door to that one?
I don't know, because it depends on whether they have a written agreement with the utility.
With National Grid?
Yeah, it depends on a number of different factors, and I don't know in that particular case whether they meet all those factors or not.
Yeah.
But
You're working on that one now.
the tax assessor keeps track of that stuff,
Okay.
because she's already familiar with the state regulation.
Okay. So, any questions? Any questions out there in La La Land? Yes, ma'am. State your name, please.
Ellen Drew
From,
from
yeah.
Carolina.
Oh, Carolina, okay.
Is that all right?
One of our wonderful villages.
One of those orange villages, right. Is there a minimum size for production for taxation, or is there are you gonna, as far as you know?
I did have a copy of the regulations with me. Let me see if it's still in this folder.
In other words, I guess the question would be, if a house is equipped with solar panels, are they gonna get taxed?
Those are not
No,
covered by
It's
this.
not.
This is just commercial production.
Okay,
That's not for the use of the building that it's connected with.
okay.
The answer is that I don't know, but I bet if you went home and asked Ken, he'd know.
I bet he would.
Helen's husband is the former director of the state energy office.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's why I made that comment.
Cool.
Any other questions? Council, any other
Motion
comments?
Oops, that's it.
Sorry. Hi,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Denise Poyer. I live on Smallpox Trail.
Mhm.
And just a comment, I think if this is commercial venture, so a private home would not be
No, we're not.
under this tax, so the private home who has solar panels, which we're encouraging, would therefore not be taxed. But a commercial venture that's coming into the town and making money, I believe that it is appropriate to tax them.
Mhm. Yes, does not include solar panels on your house and stuff like that. No.
Not yet.
Well, I don't know. Any other questions? Yes,
I would
sir.
ask a follow-up question. Would there be a...
State your name, please, for the
yeah,
record.
Jim Turek,
Yeah.
resident of Richmond. And so the question would be, is there any small businesses that would be included then? Let's say somebody runs a small business on their...
No, it only applies to solar systems that are built to generate energy, not to generate energy for something else that's on the property, but built to generate energy to sell to the utility.
Okay. And
Commercial.
So, hypothetically, I'm just trying to figure out what the sites that might not fall nicely into that. But what if you had industrial buildings, let's say a warehouse, and they were producing energy on their roof with solar? Is that also taxable?
What are they using it for?
Well, let's say they want to use it mostly to power their own facilities.
It's not taxable.
But the excess is.
Excess would be.
It depends. That's why I said it depends on
Yeah.
what kind of system it is and whether they have an agreement with the utility and what the regulation says.
Someone with that. So.
Yes, sir. State your name and where you're from?
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, Council, my name is Frank Epps. I'm from Energy Development Partners. I actually led the development community to adopt the tax legislation for
I told you he could answer the question.
to 2016, and so I would be very happy to answer and to clear up any misconceptions concerning it.
Okay.
The solicitor is absolutely right. The reason why the leagues of cities and towns and a number of developers came together was because of the Supreme Court's actions and rulings and designation that the turbine in North Kingstown was manufacturing equipment. And so therefore, manufacturing equipment under the tax rules of the state of Rhode Island is not taxable. for tangible property taxes. We felt that it was unfair to the communities, and also the communities that we have as current solar facilities on, that would not have been affected because it was not retroactive. But still, there could have been some issues concerning the owners of those facilities that would question their capability to be taxed. And so therefore, we had a working group together with the legislation, the tax office, actually Ken was there as well, and others that were involved in the decision. And together we came up with a $5 per kilowatt AC installed nameplate to be charged. It is not done in production. And so, and the reason why we used the AC or alternating current nameplate is simply because a solar facility has two nameplates. Its DC nameplate, which is the number of panels, and its AC nameplate, the amount of energy that it's producing to be able to connect to the grid. A wind turbine has only an AC nameplate. So, so therefore, we needed to make sure that it was fairly taxed through the different types of technologies. So we came up with $5 per kilowatt AC installed. So simply this: for every megawatt of solar that usually takes up anywhere between 4 and 4.5 to 5 acres of land, the town would be receiving for the life of that project, whether it's 20 years or 25 years, $5,000 for that project. And that's the best way for you to use the metric. So if it's a half a megawatt, you'll be receiving $2,500. Now this tax is not applicable to residents or businesses that are using the electricity, that have it as an auxiliary use on their buildings and are using the electricity for their own use. Even the excess is not taxed. It is taxed on the nameplate of the system if it would be taxed. However, if the system is connected to on a rooftop, but not used as an auxiliary use for that building, say it's selling the electricity directly to, say, the national grid, then you as a council have the opportunity to say through a 1981 statute for the state of Rhode Island, have the capability of saying whether or not that facility is taxed or not. So that's completely up to you. So again, it's a process that we in the development community felt that was reasonable to make sure that this was in place, that it was done in a comprehensive and cohesive nature throughout the state, and we're very much in back of it because, of course, we signed on because we were one of the leaders to push it through. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we have two things to do here. We
have to
close the public hearing.
We have to close the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And now we have to make a motion on this particular subject. We have two motions to make here, because we have to get rid of the old one.
Repeal the old one, correct?
Now, which one should we do first? Get rid of the old one? Yeah.
Repeal and replace.
Repeal the old one.
I'll make a motion to,
You gotta repeal chapter
Yeah, repeal,
3.80.
I can make a motion to repeal chapter 3.8, sorry.
3.80.
All the way. 3.8 exempting, stabilizing taxes on qualifying properties for use of renewable energy, production of the town code of ordinances.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded for repealing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Now we need a motion on the first part.
Make a motion to accept the revision of, or the addition of chapter 3.55, taxation of commercial renewable energy systems.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Well, that takes care of that. And now we are,
DOT,
no,
number 3.
we're on number 3. Okay, so
Make a motion to open public hearing consideration of submission to the state of, can't read today, sorry. Rhode Island Department of Transportation State Transportation Improvement Program.
Seconded.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that opens up public hearing number 3. And what we have here is, Karen, would you please go
Sure.
through this for us,
Sure.
please?
So each year, DOT contacts the local communities and requests input from the communities on transportation improvement projects. Richmond currently has quite a few projects already on the list, some of which we submitted last time around, and some of which DOT has just determined. A lot of them are bridge projects and all, which are part of their initiative. So we're only requesting to put one new project on, and that project is on Shannock Hill Road. So when you come to Shannock Hill Road at Route 2, if you've ever been out there, it basically comes to a Y, and you can kind of go either way. And Scott has recommended that we close up the ability for people to come in from the northernmost portion of the Y, and basically abandon the southernmost portion of the Y and take the road essentially straight through to come out to Route 2 at an angle that's safer for people to pull out, and in an area of Route 2 where there's better sight distance and ability to pull out. And currently, that's actually a picnic area that's owned either by DOT or DEM. I've already been in touch with DOT. They're getting their legal people involved just to determine ownership, because they agree that it's a good project. And we're not required to contact them in advance, but because of that area we weren't sure about the ownership of, I did contact them, and they thought it was a great project. So basically what this is requesting is your approval to submit this as is, with that as a project, and with the ranking of the other projects from prior years. So, and they do require that you can rank them, I believe it's 1 through 10, or high, medium, and low. So we rank them high, medium, and low, and they require that a third of them be high, a third of them be medium, and a third of them be low. You can't rank them all high.
What
So-
is our highest priority?
There are several,
It's on.
it's Baker Pines Bridge, Heaton Orchard Bridge, Kingstown Road. It's all mostly the bridge projects. Beaver River, which is also a bridge.
Oh, I see.
Do you see them all? Mechanic
Yeah,
Street,
I
Biscuit City.
apologize. I
That's
didn't-
okay.
And
Well, this one here that you're talking about is rated high,
Yes.
because we consider that to be a very important thing in that section of the town, over in Shannock. So that's basically the only new thing that's been added to the entire list, is the Shannock Hill Road Route 2 reconfiguration, okay? Anybody have any questions out there in the audience about this?
Sorry, we were having a side conversation. I've lived on Lewiston for a really long time, so I use that intersection all the time. So I'm just curious there. So I'm Suzanne Payton, and a resident of Richmond. I don't know who that. So that north portion that you're talking about, there are driveways that exit
It wouldn't be closed completely from the base of the Y. It would be open, but it wouldn't be accessible from Route 2. So people who came out would have to come down and out. But Scott has had complaints from residents that live there about the speed of people kind of flying off Route 2, because it's,
I'm sure.
yeah, because it's not a hard turn.
But also the one that goes straight down to Route 2, there's really poor line of sight when you're coming out, and I know there's been, I know people who've had accidents there because it's really difficult to see. So you're talking about the road sort of being in a new location?
Coming out somewhere in between where it's, where there is better sight distance and not, on a curve.
And then sort of revegetating that section to the south that's there now, maybe, so
Yes,
it's not,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be a new picnic area, maybe.
Yeah, I guess if DOT chooses it, it's their land, but, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
We hope that they turn the land over to us and then we would maintain it.
I'm sorry, Scott, what?
We're hoping that they will just turn that parcel of land over to us and then we'll maintain
Oh,
it.
okay.
Hasn't been touched in probably 25 years.
Yeah, people
Leave their cars for sale there?
leave their
Yeah.
cars for sale there, right?
Yeah.
They would get taxes on that.
Any other comments from people in the audience? If not, comments from the council?
Motion to
Any other
close
comments
public
from council? No? Okay, then we can entertain a motion.
hearing? Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Next motion?
Make a motion to accept the submission to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation State Transportation Improvement Program as written in public hearing 03.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded to accept. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That will conclude the public hearing section of the meeting. We move on to consent agenda.
Anybody opposed?
Make,
Any
nothing I know of.
opposed?
What do you need?
I don't need anything, Gary, I think you were gonna say something.
Need anything? You need anything, Paul? No. You need anything, Paul?
No.
You need something, Paul?
No, I don't.
And Richard, you need anything, Paul?
I don't think I do. I think I was there. I think I was. If I wasn't, let me know.
Are we all set then?
Certainly. Make a motion to approve consent agenda items 01 through 14.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda 1 through 14. All those in favor? Aye. Move on to town administrator, Karen.
That's me again. I just wanted to give a quick update. Most of you probably know that the Federal Railroad Administration had proposed moving the railroad tracks, and thanks to some grassroots support from the town of Charlestown and people from Richmond who did go to the State House and voice their opinion on that, they have kind of put that on hold. I know Lisa Kanicki from the Chamber of Commerce, Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce, has said, you know, be careful, this is just on hold, this isn't like forever, so we just kind of need to be vigilant, you know, in case this crops up again, because there was really not a lot of notice of this to the towns. But for now, it seems to be on hold, so I know that will make a lot of people happy. An item that I have on the agenda is when we were doing raises for employees, there was one employee who had not been on last year's list because she wasn't eligible for a raise. This is our assistant animal control officer. So I would like to just request that we add her to that list at the same rate, the 3% rate that we had given to other employees.
Mm-hmm. Council, what's your
Make
pleasure?
a motion to accept the request of the town administrator for a raise for a part-time animal control officer.
Second that.
All those in favor, any discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None?
Okay, and the other item on there was the grant for the senior center. That's requesting your approval to, at this point, accept the money because that was already submitted because of a deadline, but
Yeah.
obviously we will not accept the money if you don't approve that grant.
Okay, it's your pleasure, Council.
I think that was submitted, by the way, wasn't it, by
There were
Representative Price,
two,
right?
yeah, there were two, actually. There was a rec grant and then a senior center grant.
Which we,
Both of them, yeah.
Yes.
I want to thank him for that, so.
I'd like to make a motion to release the town, senior center grant.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the senior center grant. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None?
And just two other quick updates. The e-permitting system that we started recently for building permits has just started here. About 2 weeks ago, we started, and it seems to be going along well. Eventually, all towns will be required to do it. It's a state initiative, but we did just start that recently, and it seems to be going very well. And a couple, I guess it was last meeting, you all authorized the lien study that we had talked about through the Commerce Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
We had our first meeting yesterday. We're going to meet 2 more times, but I think it was very productive. I think it's gonna lead to some good recommendations for streamlining our business licensing process. But she asked a lot of good questions that made everybody think. You know, she was very inquisitive, and she says, well, why? Why do you do it that way? And she makes people think about, well, are we just doing that because that's the way it's always been done? Or are we doing that because there's actually a reason for it? So it's kind of, you know, getting everyone to kind of think about their little piece of the pie and section of that process, and hopefully we can make that better and more business friendly. That's all I have.
All right, any questions from the council? If not, we'll move on to our police department. Chief?
Sir, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thanks. You folks, how are you? Best to be brief. Very good. So, a couple things. If you get a phone call from anybody that claims to be somebody else, an entity, Social Security Administration, IRS, and they tell you something tragic with your condition, and the only way to correct that is to go to Walmart and buy gift cards and send it to some address overseas. It is a scam. Please don't be taken by these people. They'll stop at no means basically to convince or dupe people into parting with their funds. It's happened to at least one resident. Similar scams, they all involve usually buying some untraceable means of currency being sent to some address overseas. We had an arrest of, there've been several since the last meeting, but July 6th, they arrested a 21-year-old man from Hopkinton after he turned himself in. This was an investigation that began after a frantic 911 call by a man and a woman in a truck on Old Mountain Trail being chased, pursued by an individual in a car. So it was ramming into their vehicle. And to hear this 911 call, it was so compelling. When you hear these two people, they're genuinely scared to death. And repeatedly saying, he's trying to kill us, he's trying to kill us. It was all over the place. He passed them in the opposite direction. They had LEDs on top of the truck. He took offense to that, felt that they were trying to blind oncoming motorists. There are better ways of handling that than trying to run people off the road. They got to Old Mountain Trail at Hillsdale, and they actually did almost a pit maneuver. They rammed him again. You can hear the impact on the 911 call. You hear the screaming. The thing rolls over. The female occupant was injured with minor injuries. Thank God, nobody was seriously hurt. And he fled the scene. Police pass him, turn around and go after him. He ended up losing them on Hillsdale Road. Shut his headlights off. So, fortunately, we were able to identify him based on that type of vehicle and some other investigative steps by men in the patrol. Very nice job. Charged with 2 felonies, leaving the scene of an accident with personal injury, driving as to endanger with personal injury resulted, and then 2 misdemeanors, disorderly conduct and reckless driving. And lastly, I have a request before the council for acknowledgement and approval of hiring Brock Taylor as a full-time police officer. This is actually somewhat delayed. He finished his probation in January of this year. It would just be recognition of that so that he can move to step 1. He's done a fantastic job. He's great with the public. I don't know, for those that maybe have met him on 3rd shift, he's working 3rd shift right now, but he's a community person. He lives in the area. He graduated from Cheryl High School. He generally cares about people in the community, and it shows in the way that he deals with people. Police should treat people with respect, and that's what Brock has done, and it's been very good for our reputation.
So motion to approve the request from for the Police Chief Elwood Johnson for the permanent appointment of Patrolman Brock Taylor.
Second. A second.
You can't second right
Oh,
now.
that's right, I can't.
You're in charge.
That's right.
Second.
Right, so how do we vote?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is the report from the Public Works.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Told you earlier, the meetings by July, the roads will be clear of snow, so the roads are clear. However, we are behind the schedule with street sweeping and some of our road projects that you're probably aware of. We've had a lot of rain the early part of the summer, so the brush is growing like crazy. We're trying to finish up Lewiston Avenue and you know, we still have to get going on James Trail, so we're attempting to complete everything. If anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to answer them, but mainly right now, we're trying to keep the intersections clear going around and just trying to mow the brush at the intersections for visibility. If anybody has any questions about what we've been doing, I'd like to introduce at this time our newest team member, Brittany Carpenter. The council's met her. This is historic in that she's going to be the first female full-time employee for the Public Works Department. We have all the confidence in the world. Bringing to us a positive attitude. She's a hard-working individual, and she'll fit in great with the team.
Motion to approve the Public Works Director request, Scott Barber, for appointment of Brittany M. Carpenter as full-time laborer.
Second.
Council, any questions?
I just want, are you from the town? You, Brittany?
No, I'm from Charlestown.
Okay.
But
When you
I've been
moving?
on
When you moving to
Richmond
Richmond?
for a while.
Okay,
Do we need to approve her pay rate?
was there a pay raise with that?
No, I said, do we need to approve the rate?
The rate of pay.
The rate of pay was advertised, correct?
Yes, okay.
So,
Okay, then the motion was there. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
welcome.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, I think we need pictures.
Absolutely. I think this is a historic moment.
Yeah, it is.
Want to come up, Brittany?
Yeah, where's the press? Usually they
Where's the
have-
press?
Yeah.
Someone said National Enquirer's here. Brittany, come on up. You have to.
Scott.
Absolutely.
No, nobody's
You
gonna.
want to take? I think Karen's going to take a picture. So.
Sure.
Come on.
Wow.
It's part of the public limelight.
Yeah.
You're working for the public.
Yeah.
How's that? Is that close enough?
He doesn't like to get by the camera.
Awesome. Perfect.
Congratulations.
I have a couple of other items, bid awards. Request that the council approve the bid award for the one-ton dump truck to Stone Motors for the amount not to exceed $43,029.
Scott, can I ask a question? When these things are under warranty and something happens, who will we bring them back to stone them? Is that what happens?
Typically the dealer that sells them, but the other dealers will honor
Okay.
whatever warranty items there are.
Thank you. And I'm assuming from talking to you, these are none of this one's not a diesel, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Thank you. Not that it would make a difference to me, because
No, in the smaller class vehicles with getting away from the diesels, there's been way too many problems with the emission systems, too much downtime. So we're going back to the gas jobs and the smaller class vehicles under the 15,000 GVW.
and they're probably saving a lot of money in buying them that way, correct?
There's probably a $12,000 to $15,000 cost difference.
What brand is the dump truck?
Ford. It's tough. Ford has such a good municipal program.
Mhm.
Really, they have the lion's share of the market.
So we're getting rid of a Yugo truck we've been using? Our trucks are pretty old, I'm assuming, Scott, right?
Pre-Yugo.
Yugo, I go old, though.
Yes, sir.
Scott, this is a brand new truck, right? I mean, it's not
That's
replacing another one, it's a whole new
This is a whole new
truck to the fleet, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Brittany's gonna drive it.
Actually, it will be the vehicle that she'll be following.
There you go.
Wow.
Okay. All right, the motion was made. Was it seconded?
I second it.
Okay, it was seconded, Sarah, by Mark. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. And number 4, Scott.
Yes, and I request that you approve the bid for the 10-wheel dump truck to Anderson Motors in the amount of $171,763.
Is this from Scott too? Obviously, this is a diesel, but is this replacing one, or how's this one working?
Yes, this is replacing it.
So how many will we have with this one? Against the same amount, but how many do we have now that that can plow?
We'll have 5 10-wheel dump trucks
Oh, wow.
and 2 6-wheel dump trucks, and we have a couple of older spares.
Wow.
Now, most of those can be configured with plows for the wintertime, right?
Almost everything that we have with a motor and wheels on it, we put a plow on.
Yeah, okay.
And we appreciate it.
Okay.
These are already in the, are these already in the budget? They're already.
They
Yeah.
have to be, yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve that purchase.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
And the last item is we need to approve the contract with the Island Resource Recovery. As you recall, when we were negotiating with Charahoe and the CAF, we weren't sure how that was gonna affect our contract, so we held off approving it, and the deadline's coming up August 1st, so we need to get this approved and submitted to them.
So that's all straightened out now with the
Everything's
charitable?
straightened out.
Okay.
Correct.
Karen Ellsworth,
Yes,
you've read the contract?
it's the same one every year.
The same exact?
Yeah, yes, we don't have any, right to argue with them about it, so I would recommend that you approve it.
Okay.
Now make a motion to approve the solid waste and recycling services agreement between Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation and the town of Richmond.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you so much, Scott.
Hey, Scott, Scott,
Yes, sir.
the last time that we were chatting, the deal with the recyclables, and all the stuff that goes in the recycle bin, how it adversely affects the town. Is it possible that since I've gone to the dump multiple times, I see nothing but trash bags, bags with cigarette butts, literally just bags of trash in the recycle bin. And I had made a statement to a gentleman, I said, do you realize that it costs the town about $700 for that plastic bag to be in that recycle bin? And the guy looked at me with this look on his face of, yeah. And I looked at him back and I said, do you realize the transfer company is gonna pick up this and they're just gonna throw it into the trash itself and then charge the town $700? And he looked at me again and I said, I'm not kidding you. If you don't just throw recyclables in there, we're going to be losing money, and a lot of it every single week. Is there a way that we can really ramp up how we can stop people from throwing their trash in the recycle bins?
But we're gonna start monitoring it more closely, and by putting extra people over there, and we've been educating people. Resource Recovery has provided us with handouts, and there was a mailer that went out to every homeowner. And they're gonna give us a time period. They're educating the curbside pickup people also. And unfortunately, with the recycling industry, a lot of the products come through with the recycling logo on it. It varies so differently between the states of what's recyclable and what isn't. It gets confusing for the people. And then there's just a group of people that are trying to just skirt their responsibility of paying for their waste, and they're throwing things that just don't belong in the recycling stream. So it's going to be an ongoing process to hopefully educate residents on good recycling. We just got the report that we're one of the higher towns with our recycling rate, so we will be getting a rebate this year on our tipping fees. So, we've worked really hard to get the system that we have in place, and we're certainly not going to let it slip and go by the wayside. It's just some people are really good at recycling. Some people think they're recycling, and they're actually just making it worse. And it's all market driven, trying to get rid of the product. You probably noticed if you're frequently in the transfer station, we've had a big problem with the clothes drop off. We have 2 different vendors there, that we provide space to, and they haven't been picking up. And it got out of hand, so we had to dispose of it, and actually there's one of them actually asking them to leave because they're not keeping up with their own system. And what's happening with that is the same thing. People are putting items that don't belong in there, and they're really trash. And it's just become a bigger problem. If you drive down 138 by the credit union, there's been there, overflowing all over the ground. You look at a lot of the items, it's not items that they typically accept for the drop off. So it is a problem. I mean, just like the trash that's piling up on the side of the streets, the problem. I have a big problem with the oil, waste oil. The state contract is like 6 months behind on being signed, and they issued a new vendor, contacted a new vendor. He's yet to empty our tank. So now, we're starting to pick up 5-gallon cans of waste oil on the side of the road. So everything that we're trying to do to promote good recycling, sometimes the managers of our own system kind of hurt what we're trying to do on the local level. So yes, to answer your question, we're going to be policing it more closely, and hopefully we won't have it rejected because it will be costly.
Scott, would it make any sense to have a receptacle before the receptacle for recycle, that the stuff gets thrown in there and then it gets transferred? I know it's a little extra work, but you'd
we
be
don't
able
really
to...
want to promote that because there again, with one person over there,
Yeah,
people are going to put their regular trash in there and they're not going to pay to go over the scale with it.
right.
We do provide an area to put the plastic bags in. Once they get there, they can break open their plastic bags, place it in the trash receptacle, and then we end up putting it in the regular trash. But to put a separate container like that is just going to cause more grief for us.
Now that other thing, the donation bin that's over by the credit union that's overflowing with trash, myself, I think it's an eyesore, and I'd like to contact the company to have it removed.
But that's not up to us. We
Okay.
don't monitor that one. We only control the ones that are at our transfer station.
Right.
That's the property owners giving them permission. And there's a couple of the organizations that just aren't keeping up with their donations.
That particular organization is actually a for-profit organization, and they use the money to fund their organization.
You could find out who the owner of that property is, and you could always have the town administrator contact them and let them know that we don't appreciate, the collection of junk over there, whatever. You think so, Karen?
Sure.
So why don't you do that?
Thanks, Scott.
You're welcome. I think there's
Thank
more
you, Scott.
questions.
Yes, Jackie, please.
Yeah, I'm Jackie Kenyon. I just have a thought, and I don't know if it'd be worth doing, but it would be possible, I would be willing to do it. A flyer as simple as possible, like a bank, some restaurants, some stores, and bring them there, they'll let you put them up, and just hopefully be able to notice that, and that will catch their eye. So it's just a thought to throw out to us, Scott. If you do that, I'll be happy to put as many items as I can.
Yes, sir.
Jim Turner, Conservation Commission. I was wondering whether or not, so we have the call home capabilities. I'm just curious whether or not we could ever utilize that avenue to talk briefly to the public about the importance of us making money by having recyclables in that system and not the trash. And then perhaps also, maybe have something else about other recycling priorities in our town with a simple phone call to the town residents.
You don't think we have that ability?
Well, we have the Code Red system, but we can only use it for emergencies, because we
do it for voting, we do it for...
Not anymore. We used to pay for the system. It's now provided by EMA. It would probably cost, I believe it was $10,000 over the 3-year contract period to keep the system that we had. So we opted for the free system offered by the state, but because of that, it can only be used for emergencies.
Okay, nice to know.
I mean, I can certainly do some sort of a campaign, and with Scott on our social media and on our website. Those are all free things anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Leslie Weeks, Conservation Commission. Why don't you just get a camera out there? Look at the money problems it's making with people going through red lights. You make a fortune over there. There's people that don't care. Look at the sofa that's sitting in the terrible closet in front of the post office. I mean, you're dealing with people that, hey, you know, just throw it in the chairs. So get a camera. That would save a lot of money, don't you think?
Maybe. I know the city of Providence right now is being sued by the ACLU for the traffic light cameras.
Yeah, but they just
I don't know how that's going to work out.
They say it just passed though, so.
Yeah.
Just put a sign up, cameras in use.
Mm.
I mean, one camera's cheaper than like getting stuff kicked back for $700.
Put up dummy.
We could probably, there'd have to be dummy cameras because somebody's gonna have to sit and go through the footage and that's just gonna take a long time.
Good volunteer.
Who would go through the footage?
We have a hard time getting volunteers now.
I think she just volunteered.
Is that your hand, Joe? Oh,
Yes, it is. Joe Reddish, Town of Richmond. Suggestion, I know you got rid of the code red system. If you look at the cost of mailing something directly to all of our residents, and say you wanted to do a flyer and you want to mail a notification, the code red system for what you pay for it per year, you could do multiple communications out to residents. Because it's been found that people don't read the newspaper, things like that, but they do listen to the messages, so this council might want to rethink the decision to have gotten rid of it and bring it back as a way to communicate with our community for challenges like this going forward. So at 40 cents a letter times all the residents, you're going to more than pay for getting 4 to 10 communications availability per year to go out. You'll save money actually.
I think Scott's got his hand up, Mr. President. Scott?
Who?
I'll respond to that.
Oh, Scott.
The reason why we decided to get away from using the code red system for regular announcements wasn't so much for cost, but it's supposed to be a nationally recognized system for use to notify people of what to do when certain emergencies were going on and taking place. Through our task force meetings, which are all our emergency services, we felt that we're sending out the wrong message every time something happened in town to send out a code red. People were actually calling the town hall saying, stop sending me so many messages about things that aren't emergency related because they only want to be notified when it's something that's imminent to their health and safety. So that decision was made by the emergency management team that we have in place. So it wasn't so much based on cost. It's kind of like fire prevention tools. You know, you use them to promote fire prevention. The same thing with the code red. You use that to give emergency announcements, not routine everyday messages, and that's what was happening. People were ignoring them, so that's where we come up with that.
And I can vouch for that because I remember the meeting we had, and there were several people there saying that very thing, that code red should be code red and not just ordinary messages. You know, this needs to be for an emergency purpose only. And that was a very deciding factor as to what we did. Okay, Scott, thank you. I guess we're moving on to Finance Department, and that would...
It's 7 o'clock.
Pardon?
It's 7
7
o'clock.
o'clock and go to the public hearing.
Oh, okay. We can't finish this?
Maybe we can. It's only 2 quick
No.
items. You want to do it?
There's only 2 items there. Can we just do those?
And then, you know,
And then do the public hearing
Late filers.
on the Finance Department?
and then I think you might want to go home. Have you been here all day, by the way?
6 days anyway.
All day?
Okay, we don't have a problem with that.
You can do it however you want to do
Yeah,
it.
there's a few more minutes. Isn't there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Dave.
Needless to say, with the 1st of July, it's been very busy in the finance office, setting up the new year and all the payrolls and working on the audit. We had a couple of issues with the water bills. They did go out late. The
issues have been addressed. We don't foresee them happening again. And we are extending the due date. We're not going to charge interest for another week after the due date. So. Other than that, I do have a request on for, it's not actually the audit contract, but it's the engagement letter, which the council is to review and authorize the town council president, town administrator, and finance director to sign.
Okay, this is the usual thing that we do every year, right?
Yes. Otherwise, they won't do the audit.
Right. Okay.
Motion to approve item number 2, consideration of audit contract for Bacon and Company, LLC, and authorization for the town council president, town administrator, and finance director to sign.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you, Dave. And now we will go back to public hearing
01.
01.
Make a motion to open public hearing for 01 petition by the Energy Development Partners LLC for text amendments to the zoning ordinance to allow solar energy systems in the R3 zoning district.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we have representatives here from the organization, so.
I knew him when he was young.
Yeah. He still is. Come on.
Yeah, it's all relative.
I can move.
Everybody went bed to Paul.
I scared him.
A real sign of old age is when you know his father
Yeah.
as a police officer.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob, what's here? What do you got?
What do we got?
Excuse me,
well,
Bob, I apologize for interrupting you. Maybe you want to state the people, if you don't mind, first.
Introduce everyone.
Please.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Please.
To my immediate left is Frank Ebbs. He's the project manager for EDP. Elle is the mapping person. She's actually got some maps that we're going to distribute to everybody today for the show and tell part of this.
Is that the same one that is attached to the packet? The same one?
Yes, it is. So
Okay.
we would just have them available for the public in the event that anybody
Okay.
wanted to view them. And then Alan Benavides is the engineer on the project.
Yeah.
When I say the project, obviously we are here in reference to a zone change that has already been announced and is in your agenda. But it will affect the project or projects that there may be as many as 2 in the town of Richmond. But we're here specifically to explain why we think that a zone change to your R3 zone in conjunction with the presentation both in writing that you have in front of you from your town planner and your town solicitor, as well as the presentation that we will make today, is in the interest of the town of Richmond, both in that it complies with your comprehensive plan, to keep a green town, and secondly, that it provides a revenue source, a significant revenue source, part of which is what you've talked about here today, $5 a kilowatt hour. But in our particular case, with our projects, we're actually willing to pay that tax that the Rhode Island Supreme Court has said you don't have to pay. So with that, I will introduce you to Frank Ebbs. Frank is the project manager, and he certainly has some part of the presentation to present to you. I want to make sure everybody, Karen, do you have a copy of those maps?
I do not.
Okay. There you go. Bill, want that? And
Is it 2 people still?
anyone else who would like one in the audience?
Yeah, I got one. Bob, do you have another? I don't have one.
Back of your packet.
Maybe is it back? Maybe I separate them.
You guys have a whole.
I apologize. I do have them,
Oh, you
Bob.
do? Okay.
Thank you.
Yours is too good for that.
You should have.
Actually, the credit goes to your planner.
You should have
Go
about.
look at the packets.
Yeah.
I just passed
You should
them.
have 4 maps altogether. You should have 4 maps. 3 small ones and 1 big one.
Where's the buried treasure map?
Mr. President, if you don't mind, I'll stay over here so I can make sure that the
Everybody
the
can
audience
hear.
can hear me at the same time.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. President, members of the Town Council, and ladies and gentlemen, my name is Frank Epps, that's EPPS, and I'm a resident of the town of East Greenwich. I've been a solar renewable energy developer for 10 years throughout the United States. I've been concentrating in the state of Rhode Island for exactly 8 years, since 2010. It's 2009, excuse me. I've been a resident of the state of Rhode Island for 28 years, and I've been a businessman here in the state of Rhode Island for most of those as an entrepreneur. What I would like to address the council is to say simply that no individual project is really being discussed here tonight. What is being discussed is whether the addition of a solar facility under numerous restrictions and conditions should be added to those uses allowed under a special use permit for R3 properties. I propose to you that the decision is that you should make is a balance between the ability of an R3 landowner to be able to derive economic benefit from the ownership of their properties, but also the opportunity for the town to derive economic benefit from development, but also understanding that we need to preserve, and it is the community's desire to preserve, the rural nature of the community itself. There are 13 uses that an R3 landowner can, by right, proceed to develop their property. And there are 9 additional uses that can be developed under a special use permit. Those uses allowed by right are a detached dwelling unit, a house, a 2-dwelling unit building, a community residence, a mobile or manufactured home park, a municipal or quasi-municipal public safety or other types of facilities, the keeping or breeding of domestic livestock, horticulture, a public school, golf course, fairgrounds, an academy for horse breeding and breeding facility, a park or a botanical garden, and a wildlife refuge or conservation area. And allowed by special use permit is keeping or breeding swine, a private school, a private nursery school or kindergarten, a cemetery, a recreational campground, a seasonal camp, commercial cellular communication tower, dog boarding or breeding kennel, and a winery at a vineyard. Now, 10 uses by right and 7 special use permits. Uses also have additional features that would be required just for the purpose of them being there. And what are these additional purposes, or allowable uses, I should say, features? Impermeable surfaces or driveways, sidewalks, and parking lots and terraces, electrical infrastructures, wastewater treatment and septic systems, land clearing, lawns and landscaping, fertilizer use, drinking water wells, fencing, fires, bonfires, pit fires, or open air burning, signs up to 32 square feet depending on the type, a swimming pool, outdoor lighting, amplified outdoor sound system, trash storage areas, and, clubhouse, including a restaurant, ramps for handicap access, public restrooms, manure management, and home-based businesses. So, solar adds little, if any, impermeable surfaces. There's no wastewater treatment or septic systems involved in the solar facility. There's no fertilizers are used on the grounds whatsoever. Digging wells for drinking water, it's not required. There is no outdoor lighting in any of the facilities that I have operating in the state of Rhode Island. There are no amplified outdoor sound systems or trash storage areas, nor is there any planning for manure management, although some in this room might think otherwise. Of these additional features of allowable uses, only one is applicable to a special use permit for solar, and that's land clearing. The solar facility would be of the least impact to the land compared to many of the by right and special use permits on the record today. Least impact without even discussing the other restrictions that we have proposed for a solar facility. A solar facility, these other provisions that we propose are ones that we have initiated in other communities. I do have solar facilities either abutting or a part of a low density residential zoned area. The solar facilities front and rear side setbacks, and there are three we are presenting as 50 feet for the setbacks itself. The no prime agricultural soils or topsoils are allowed to be removed from the site whatsoever. The height restriction of the facility is only 12 feet. A 25-foot wide vegetation buffer is being proposed between the lot boundaries, and it is required, and it can be increased by the decision of the zoning board. The requirement that a bond be posted for the building permit before the building permit is issued for the removal and the site restoration of such removal must be within 90 days from ceasing of operations of the solar facility. So this is a temporary use of the facility, of the land. As a matter of its operation, there are little or no traffic involved to be dealt with in this facility. There is no town-funded infrastructures or investments to support. There is the preservation of real property taxes, allowing the owner of the property to pay the taxes through its lease revenues. And of course, we, as our leases go, we have a triple net lease, so we do pay the taxes, the real property taxes on the property. But there's also a creation of new tangible property taxes, as you have already discussed. And to further the restrictions, and this is key, it's been, we have suggested, and merely suggested to the council, that this zoning ordinance be set to have a minimum of 11 acres of outside of contiguous acres, I should say, outside of RIDEM jurisdictional wetlands, and cannot be outside of a 2-mile radius of the utility substation. We did this simply because of the concerns of how much property under an R3 section would be allowed for development of a solar facility. So no other by right or special use permit that are on the records today are required to adhere to these many restrictions. And no other development is temporary, as far as I can tell, and required to be removed on the site and the site restored. So the time to address whether any specific project fits the conditions that we have asked for is at the development plan review provided by the planning board and at the public hearing for the permit being asked for by the zoning building review board. And tonight you need to decide under these stated restrictions whether or not the solar can be added to permitted uses under a special use permit. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. President, I'd like to point one thing out before you begin your questions, and a couple of questions I want to ask Frank. The maps that we've handed out, the public has copies of them as well. Is the purpose of these maps to identify the potential possibilities, given the restrictions you've just defined, of properties in the town of Richmond that could qualify, both with size, with proximity to the 2-mile radius, as well as with reference to the other restrictions such as wetlands, which are obviously DEM, but also with reference to solar, which means that the topography is going to face west or southwest?
The answer is yes.
And can you identify, by use of these maps, if you want to use mine, how many properties we have identified through our research?
I've spent a great deal of money educating Ms. El Nordzi in GIS mapping and so on, so I would ask her to
would you like to
address that.
Yes.
All right. I'll just stand over here.
provisions that people would be questioning?
Sure. We've handed out some maps
Yes.
to the public as well as to the members of the town council. And in that map, as I understand it, from both the first map, which is a map of the entire affected area of the town of Richmond, which is outlined in blue,
Yes.
as well as 3 circular dots which talk about Wood River Substation, Kenyon Substation, and the Main Street Substation. My question to you is, have we been able to analyze with all the restrictions that are in the proposed ordinance, as well as the restrictions of the economics and the viability of a project for solar, how many potential pieces of land would qualify given size and other restrictions?
Yes.
And what are they? What's the number?
We have 5 individual properties that may be affected, that may qualify under the restrictions in the proposed ordinance. This map, these 5 parcels where this map was created, using both the publicly available Town of Richmond GIS, which can be found through the town's website, and anybody in town is welcome to access that. There is also a publicly available database through Rhode Island GIS. GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. It's basically a fancy way of saying mapping and viewing data. And the Rhode Island GIS data sets also provided data to narrow down the list to these 5 properties in town within a 2-mile radius of the substation.
Could you identify the 5 properties that you have located and researched that qualify in some way, shape, or form potentially to be sites for a solar farm?
Yes. There is one affected by the Wood River substation that is on Church Street. There is one affected by...
Excuse me. In looking at this map here,
Yes.
that would be this little green spot.
Yes, that green pin is indicating where the parcel is, and the parcel is outlined in yellow.
Yeah, okay.
So that down by the Wood River substation is on Church Street. There is one property affected by the Main Street substation 2-mile radius, and that is a property on Old Switch Road. And there are 3 properties on North Road affected by the Kenyon River substation. I'm sorry, the Kenyon substation.
The ones on the North Road are contiguous pieces of property, right?
The 3 of them, they are contiguous. They are abutting each other. It appears that all 3 do have different owners. The only thing that this map does not show, that is not publicly available information, is whether or not the development rights have been sold on any of these parcels. So it's possible that out of one we do know about through speaking to the owner, but it's possible out of the other 4 that some of them may not have development rights in place anymore, and therefore they would not be able to develop solar there either.
Which, you don't know which ones those are?
We don't know. That's not publicly available information.
It's not public information where the developments have been sold?
I don't believe so, not information that
I
I
thought
have.
It's in the land evidence records.
I'm sorry?
It's in the land evidence
I was
records.
gonna say, it's gotta be public record.
Okay, so it would be a matter of going down into the land evidence records and seeing whether or not development rights had been sold.
Mhm.
I'd like to add one more thing, thank you, Al, is simply that the National Grid has planned to decommission the Hope Valley Main Street substation. And it is being decommissioned because of a number of reasons. One, it's inadequate in many ways, but it's also in a floodplain zone. I'm sure you all know that. The Chase Hill substation is being completed, and that will be in progress and completed very, very soon. I would say most likely by the end of 2018, 2019 operation.
Excuse me, where exactly is that located?
Chase Hill Road is off of Route 216. It's in
Oh, so
Hopkinton.
it's in Ashaway?
It's in Ashaway, Hopkinton area.
Yes, okay.
And to our evaluation, there are no properties within a 2-mile radius of the new Chase Hill substation that are within the town of Richmond.
You mentioned an 11-acre boundary. Could you repeat that?
Yes, sir. We talked about how best we could look at restricting development of properties to a certain level. And I have to be very clear. The 11-acre side and the radius of 2 miles is both somewhat technical and also somewhat arbitrary. By technical, I simply mean that the projects have to be economically feasible to be able to attract the investors and be built. A 11-acre system, 11 acres can provide approximately 2 megawatts worth of power of solar development. Maybe just a little more, maybe a little bit less. The 2-mile issue is based upon a number of things concerning National Grid's ability to evaluate the interconnection, whether or not it has the capability to interconnect in an economically feasible way, concerning technical issues such as voltage fluctuations, voltage flicker, and other requirements that are all taken in consideration during a study for interconnection. The way the interconnection actually works is that a site has to be under control. You have to demonstrate site control to National Grid. The second portion of it is you put in an application. And this application is a very detailed application, but it doesn't really cost that much money to do. It's about $2,500. Within 30 days, National Grid has the ability and the requirement to tell you whether or not that application is complete. After that time, and if it is complete, the applicant for the interconnection has the capability of telling National Grid they want to do a feasibility study, which basically is whether or not the project is feasible. And this is where most of the information comes out, but it's not held by National Grid as being a commitment. Or a system impact study. And this is where the developer or the applicant spends about approximately $10,000 just in application fees to National Grid to determine the full feasibility study and feasibility of interconnection, as well as the cost to interconnect. And at that time, the project has to either, and it takes, 55 business days or 90 calendar days for that study to come in. I can assure you that that is what National Grid's deadlines are in the tariff, but I can assure you that's not the deadlines that they keep. It's usually 5 to 6 months out. Now, clearly what happens at that time, a project then is assigned whether or not it is completely feasible to interconnect. Some projects that we do are not feasible to interconnect because of these voltage fluctuations, because they're farther away from the substations. But some, if they're closer to the substations and the network itself is viable, in other words, the voltages of the network are viable, then you normally can interconnect to the system. Interconnections in a 2 megawatt system and up are not cheap. They are in the area between $150,000 to as much as $400,000 to $500,000. We have one interconnection in the town of West Greenwich that we are looking at right now, is $7 million. So it fluctuates, and the cost structures fluctuate from project to project, substation to substation, and area to area. And then 25% of the cost of that deposit is made for the interconnection. The National Grid does their studies, does their design per their studies, and then within 2 or 3 months, the full amount is due, and then National Grid goes forward with the interconnection. I would suggest to the Town Council that no project be taken seriously until such time as that
impact study has been accepted by National Grid and accepted by the project developer. Because a feasibility study is simply that, a feasibility study. A preliminary study is simply that, it's preliminary. But it's when the actual rubber meets the road is when the impact study comes back in. And that simply means there has to be a lot of commitment by the developer, by the project owner, to make sure that the project is feasible and going forward. So I wouldn't touch a tree, I wouldn't touch anything, I wouldn't touch any piece of property until such time as I have that impact study completed and then the interconnection service agreement, or the ISA, signed by National Grid.
Just a question, this piece of property that you're talking about, how many acres is it?
What piece of property is
Are
that?
we, is one there on Old Switch Road? Is that, no, I'm sorry, by Church Street.
There is a property off of Church Street
Right.
that is being considered, and that is approximately 50 acres.
And out of the 50, they would use 40, is that what you're saying?
Well, the setbacks and other types of processes allowed as dictated here, we would do a number of things. The first thing we would do is we would have a proposed 25-foot, first a 50-foot setback from the property lines, which takes up a lot. A 25-foot vegetated buffer around the property itself, so anyone on Church Street or well, it's Church Street because it's a private road going in. Anyone on Church Street would not see the property in any way, shape, or form. It's offset. It would be offset by the residents, and then so therefore I would say maybe because there's other types of situations that we have to commit to and be approved by the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. We have to ensure, and this is all projects, not this one or any other project. We have to ensure that stormwater runoff is equal to pre-development and post-development. So we cannot in any way, shape, or form increase stormwater development. Normal stormwater runoff. Normally we improve it. In Johnston, we improved it by flowing it away from the land, away from the road for the community, and into drainage and system pits that were designed by Mr. Benavides and his company. So there's other issues that we have to make sure that we adhere to on the state level, as well as adhering to on the local level as well.
And you said the total amount would be 50 acres, that's what that property is?
There's that one property that's approximately 50 acres.
I'm just using that as an
Yeah.
example, of course. And how long are the panels good for, 25 years?
The panels are actually warranted for 25 years, and so therefore the panels actually do last much longer than 25 years. We have I did not put up any panels in the 70s or 80s, but I do know of products that are out there still at 78 to 85% efficient. Now the panels from yesteryear and the panels from today are two very, very different things. The panels today are silicon, polysilicon, or monosilicon. The water, it runs off of the panels. It is, if we need to have any type of water management on the system, we do that for runoff to make sure that we're not worrying about any type of increased filtration, such as we put crushed stone to help treat the water, the runoff, to slow down the filtration at one site. And there's no contaminants whatsoever. The systems that we do and we propose, and again, I'm not talking about any one individual solar system here, but they are fixed mounted systems. They do not move. There's no oils used in any way, shape, or form. We do not clean them. Mother Nature takes care of that for us. And we are at the site maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Other than that, we track the systems on the internet, online, which we would be happy to open up to anyone to monitor the system. If anything happens to the system, we are called by the monitoring system itself. We adhere to fire protection. We make sure that the fire department has the capability of signing off on the design. We have the fire department has access to the system through knock boxes. We do not put up
as some do any type of barbed wire, because we just don't want anybody getting hurt trying to get into it. If they get into it, there's nothing really they can do. They can touch the panels. They can do anything they want to while it's operating. Of course, they can't take a crowbar and open up the transformer or so on, but that's the same in any building itself. It's a very, very passive. It's a very, very passive use, and we have posted bonds in our other communities for the removal and the site restoration of these systems.
And what happens when that happens 25, 20, 30 years down? They pull them out, everything in the land now is barren, right?
That's correct.
And then the owner can do whatever they would like to do with that property.
We have to, according to these rules and regulations,
Yeah.
which are a little bit stricter than the regulations that we have in other communities, we have to post a decommissioning plan, file a decommissioning plan before the zoning board would allow us to build. And that decommissioning plan would include not only the removal, but also the restoration of the site to a certain level of restoration. If it is replanting of trees, it's replanting of trees. If it is, changing some levels because we had to put drainage in, we would do so only if, of course, right would be.
Well, thinking further down the road, I guess maybe it's going to go to Bob, but I'm just thinking that land, when everything is up, they could actually have this barren land which they could put houses on, correct?
They could do, the landowner has the right, according to this, to then, because this is a temporary use, to go right back into any of the permitted by right or special use permits that is allowed by the town, either now or then.
And I'm not familiar with this in the essence, call it a bond, but it's going to be there in 25 years to get them out, right, or 30, whatever it might be. Bob, maybe you can answer that question.
When you post a bond, it's usually through a surety company, or it's cash.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's cash. And you make a good faith estimate as to what the cost of remediation of a piece of property back to its original condition prior to the construction. You add in inflation, and then you post the bond in that amount.
Is there any estimate, Bob, it would be what this could bring in for tax revenue for the town?
Well, I can, at least for this purpose, I can speak to the specific project that we were just all dancing around
Right.
referring to. With the property taxes, those property taxes would either remain the same or increase in the event that vision appraisal, I assume this
Right.
town still uses
Correct.
vision appraisal, determines that its use has been enhanced as a result of the solar panels being on it. I'm not going to weigh in, that's an assessor's decision. The second thing would be the taxes that we were just referring to, or your council was just referring to, into a newly adopted ordinance where you can tax based on the production of those nameplate rather, of those solar farms. And I guess there was an estimate of approximately about $5,000. I don't know whether it's more money.
Per megawatt, yes.
Per megawatt. So the 50-acre parcel would produce approximately how many megawatts?
Was it 2?
We are looking for that particular project in that location. It is approximately just shy of $24,000 or 5 megawatts
Per year.
per year for the life of the system.
The one question I asked you about the 11 acres, is that a minimum?
It's a minimum, but please, that's completely up to you.
No, understood,
Yes.
understood. I'm looking more, you're coming in and looking for an R3 upgrade to the ordinance. What happens if a homeowner wants to come in and look for an R2 in the future? Is there a minimum where we can say, well, no, that's not going to work?
And exactly, and that's why we did put the 11 out there, because it's feasible to do a 2 megawatt project or up. When it gets lower, because of the interconnection costs that we just talked about, the systems then start becoming somewhat unfeasible economically.
Okay.
And that's kind of driving force behind this. Anything in business, especially as it relates to entrepreneurial stuff, it's driven by, can you make money doing it, or will you lose money doing it? Nobody's going to do something if they're going to lose money doing it. And lastly, I don't know if Frank mentioned it, But the tax that is referred to in the, I believe it was the Di Pasquale case, it was a green energy company that owns that giant windmill next to Walmart. They actually distribute that to the
landowners, right?
The landowners that are in that association, and then I think they sell the balance. The Supreme Court said that it's manufacturing equipment, which would be the case with this, but we're willing to waive that issue and pay that to the town, whatever it would be assessed at. And that would be an annual payment, and quite frankly, depending on, again, this would be something that we would deal with zoning and planning, but we would be willing to pay in advance. Because I know from reading the newspaper, and also from being a legislator, that some problems have arisen with the Department of Education, that hurting you with your density, with your bonus that you get for having a regional school district. For what reason, I don't know, but that the Department of Education did that. But we would be able to help you with some of those problems.
Well, it is a public hearing.
Anybody?
So anybody out there?
Richard?
Richard?
You made this
Please state the name
presentation.
and
Are there other solar companies in the state putting up these setups?
Oh, yes, there are.
So this is your opinion, period, not the others. And other people may have different rules to go by.
That's absolutely true, sir. I mean, anybody can make up their own rules and regulations. Our view of the world is that we have to fulfill our requirements not only to the community that we're being hosted by, but also our investors. And so, and after 10 years of experience in putting facilities up, we tried our best to find a balance between those two.
But another company could evaluate the same information in a different way.
Of course they can.
This young lady right here in the pink.
Hi, I'm Denise Poyer. I'm a Richmond resident, and I'm also the project manager for the Wood Pawcatuck Wild and Scenic River Study. Richmond is a hell of a town. It's got unbelievable natural resources. And so right now, and this is going to be information that we'll be sharing and have been sharing with the town, we're studying 7 rivers in the watershed. 4 of them are part of Richmond, including the Wood River on the western edge, the Pawcatuck River on the south, the Queens River on the southern southeastern edge, and then the Beaver River that goes almost directly through the town. We have grave concerns about an amendment that is going to impact R3 zoning. R3 zoning, and I printed out a map, only one because it costs so much to use all of this ink. But if you look at the R3 zoning, it's all part of the
watershed.
It's all Richmond is right in the middle of the watershed. The R3 zoning is actually part of the aquifer protection area.
Which is the R3? Just
the R3 is the yellow, okay, and the slanted lines. So the R3 is the yellow there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, over there.
The slanted lines are the aquifer protection area, which matches almost exactly the R3 zoning on the western edge and a lot of the Queens River.
I can take that down.
Yep. And it matches a lot of the Queens River on the eastern edge. This big blob in the middle is the former Decapit estate, so that's already protected. Okay? So I can leave that with you. So when we discuss making a change to R3 zoning, we're
Denise,
discussing...
do you want to explain it maybe quickly again up here with the big map? If I'm not,
Yep.
if that's okay, Paul.
Yes, that's fine.
Yes. So the R3 zoning is all in the yellow, okay? And you might not be able to see it very clearly, but all along the western edge where there's R3 zoning, there's also this blue slanted line which shows an aquifer protection area. And that is what the town has designated. There's also R3 zoning on the eastern southern edge that also has aquifer protection. It also has a agricultural overlay on that too. And then the big blob in the middle of yellow, that is the Decapit estate, or the former Decapit estate that's already owned by the town, that is already protected. So, when we talk about making a change to the R3 zoning then, we're talking about impacting areas that have high natural value. Very important. And while I understand and I applaud solar panels, and I applaud the way that this company is looking at how to do a good job installing solar panels, anytime you're going to have a reason to go and clear cut a forest, and that's what's going to happen, is that, and if you haven't driven down 138 and seen the clear cut at John and Cindy's, you know, you are totally wiping out that habitat. It's going to be good for nothing as far as natural vegetation, as far as the wildlife that live in that area. And the more that you impact a forest, the more that you're going to reduce the amount of habitat and the amount of wildlife that can inhabit that area. And this could have an impact on the Wood River especially, which is going to be a wild and scenic river. And I feel that it's very short-sighted to start allowing these amendments to an R3 zone when we have no idea. There's a lot of restrictions in their proposal, which I applaud all of them, but we have no idea what's going to happen in 10 or 20 years that could work around those restrictions. We do not know. We didn't know 5 years ago that solar panel farms were going to become a big issue in rural areas like Richmond. So I really do not want to see us changing an R3 zoning that is put there for protection of our natural resources to the point where it might open up solar farms in R2 zoning or you know, whatever. There are certain areas already in the town that do allow solar panels and solar installations. These are usually areas that are already impacted and would not cut down on existing habitat. And when you cut down a forest, I don't care if you can replant it 25 years, you are going to effectively wipe out the plants and animals that are living there. And in Richmond, we are the epicenter of this watershed. We have more of the rare and endangered species in Richmond than almost any other town in the state. Okay? It's just I can't begin to tell you how very important this town is and the natural habitat that we support here. And the other thing is that the townspeople really support having a rural area. These installations are, to me, industrial areas in the middle of a residential area. And I have a lot of concerns about that.
So we're not talking about mass deforestation, we're talking about comparatively small portions of the town, not mass deforestation.
We're talking about, there was an article in Eco Rhode Island this morning about, there's a 73-acre area in Hopkinton that has approved for solar installation. 30,000 trees are going to be removed. Okay, so you know, under their restrictions, we're saying there's just 5 spots. We don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now. We're talking about 2 miles within a substation. We don't know if there's going to be more substations put in 10 or 20 years from now that's going to heavily impact all of R3 zoning. And right now, R3 zoning is relatively inexpensive land to buy. So, you know, I feel like we have people who are developing coming in and buying this inexpensive land to make a lot of money from it.
I don't think they're buying it. I think they're leasing.
leasing, whatever, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, so you're right, there's only 5 spots according to their calculations right now. I'm concerned that we're being short-sighted. If we open this up now, what's gonna prevent somebody coming in 5 years from now and saying, well, we really should make it within 4 miles of a
Well-
substation? Technology has improved.
I think we're looking at a company, though, that wants to be a good partner with the town, and that wants to take into consideration the environmental impact of those things. The
But
problem
they're not
is,
the only company that could do this.
the problem is the town says no to everything, and so our taxes continue to rise, and we continue to make municipal cuts to our budget. Our school costs soar, our taxes continue to increase, and we say no to everything that looks to come into our town, and I'm concerned about that as well.
And we could say yes to them doing an installation where they're not gonna be deforesting the area. You know, we live here in a large part because of the beautiful area that it is. We are unbelievably fortunate to live in an area like this. I think some of us just take it for granted. These healthy, clean rivers, these beautiful farms, when we start allowing this type of industry to come in into places that the town has already selected to protect as special areas, then we're going to be chipping away, and it might be 5 spots this time. You know, in 5 years from now, technology could open it up to several more and several more. I think we're really short-sighted. I think we're giving away the town.
Karen, can I ask a question, or Denise, and I'll ask you, can you take this area if they wanted to, whoever owns this property, and could you make it into house lots? No.
Probably.
Probably
Yeah.
can, which
Yeah.
if I could say this is just me, and kind of follows what Mark is saying, and then if something like that becomes house lots, we're in even worse shape than we were before, because suddenly,
Which
we're
would produce more pollution and waste and
Right.
damage the environment more.
And raise
A
our taxes.
subdivision of McMansions or a subdivision of solar panels.
If you took 100 acres in an R3 zoning, you're only allowed to build 33 house lots if all of it's buildable, and you can isolate that under our current comprehensive plan,
Conservation development.
Yes, development, conservation development, and you can actually limit it to a very small part of that 100 acres and allow the rest of it to remain forested and natural, and you can, the planning board can actually kind of direct where that goes. Now, you're right that there is an impact, we're gonna have some more impervious surfaces, but development also has to manage their stormwater runoff. They have to make sure that that stormwater runoff stays on that property or doesn't increase any off of the property, just like this development.
So does this.
So does this.
This has the same
That's what I'm
requirements.
saying. So it's not, as far as habitat, I would take the development over a clear cutting of the forest.
All a resident has to do is dump his waste coolant from his car into the backyard of his property, or throw away a couple of vacuum fluorescent light bulbs, and he's done more damage than that solar farmer is going to do.
And you got 33
I don't agree with that. I don't. Because you're still going to have a lot of habitat. And, you know, when you have a wells and septic system, they should equal out. If they're properly functioning, a properly functioning septic system will clean the water before it gets to the groundwater. This, and I haven't seen the studies on this yet, so I'm making a supposition here, but a solar farm is going to be warming up the water, because that water is going to hit those panels, it's all deforested, it's all open to the sun, and that water going into the groundwater is going to be warmer. And that has an impact. Warming of groundwater is a really big concern.
The roofs, the roads, everything's gonna also do that in a development. You're gonna have the same kind of warming.
Right, but you're going to minimize it. You're only going to have about a third of that place developed. You're still going to have 2/3 left as a forest.
And we'll have $1.1 million added stress on the school system, on the town system, for a potential 66 children, plus all of the chemicals from the school, from the
lawn
from all the
services
roads
and-
that are going to
And
impact.
yes, so.
Again, I'm, believe me, I'm not the biggest tree hugger, but I don't like watching trees get cut down, but I also look at our town and I go, I'm on the fence, but I'm sitting here going, this town has a problem. We're at a crossroads, and how are we going to sustain ourselves? How are we going to get energy to help offset? So we're in a fine balance, and if we have the way to put, I won't say restrictions, but provisions to a development that in 25 years, he's got to plant 1 million trees, he's got to plant 1 million trees. And then, I understand the bunnies and the rabbits and everything are gonna have to find a new place to go, but they'll find a
They're
new.
not gonna find a new place to go. They'll be gone.
You know,
Okay, we need to.
This is,
Yeah, we
this
need
is
to
a,
reel
this is
it
a
in.
go around, and we're gonna have to do a lot of discussion with
Okay, I
this.
need to hear from more folks.
Absolutely.
Jackie, you had your hand up for a long time.
Yeah, bear with me. I respect this woman's, how she feels, but I totally disagree. I really didn't know a lot about this, and I have to say, I thought they did an excellent job explaining this. And I agree with a lot of your later comments, is we have to do something. Nothing is perfect. We have to do some compromising. And I believe we hear about the school budget, and we all agree with that. So with this going in, you're not going to get the students. We're not going to have to pay for the students. And I believe Hopkinton just made the decision, and I think I don't explain things well. So Dave Husband made exactly some of the statements you did. He doesn't like cutting down all the trees, but they had to do some compromising because of people coming in and people of the enrollment. And I think what they have offered is a big plus to this, and I hope you approve it.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Jim Turner.
Jim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jim Turner, Concom. I just have a question for the consultants, whether or not, I'm not sure whether you have this expertise, but I'm just curious about electric and magnetic fields associated with these and how people and wildlife may be affected by them.
So, yeah, there's been plenty. Just tell me who you are. Sure. Should I stay here or should I?
Just tell us who you are.
You may
and
stay
can-
there, just talk loud, and the camera's over there.
Yeah, so Alan Benavides, I'm from Woodard and Kern. I work with Frank Epps on all the projects he's described. You know, there's a number of studies out there. The RIDEM in Rhode Island doesn't have anything specific. Massachusetts has some good guidance. Ultimately, the electromagnetic fields as part of solar projects are not an issue. There's been something that has been associated with the large-scale solar arrays. They are with transmission lines and so forth. So in terms of the electromagnetic fields, it's not something that's associated with these projects.
Could you give me a reference on the?
Sure. So if you look at Mass, CEC, you know, and under there's guidance for solar arrays, and what it does is goes through things like.
Can I just take a step back? So what was that?
Yeah, Mass, CEC.
CEC.
Yeah, and then it's guidance on, I think, design of large-scale solar arrays. It's relatively new, and what it does is it walks through a lot of the things that people bring up. Is noise an issue? Is electromagnetic fields an issue? Some of those other things, and ultimately, you know, that's not my concern.
And so that document spells out what the conditions are with the
Yeah, so it addresses that.
Thanks.
Sure, and if I could just talk about the environmental issues that came up a little while ago. You know, Frank Epps did a nice job, I thought, of describing what's allowed in these districts. In my opinion, what's being proposed here is significantly less impactful. What's being proposed in terms of the watersheds and streams. We have, in these projects, very little impervious surface. I know you say you can mitigate it, but as part of a project, you want to avoid it. So we're avoiding putting impervious surface in as part of this project. We're not injecting wastewater into the ground. We're not putting pesticides on the ground. It's very low impact from an environmental standpoint. There aren't the chemicals. So I would say, if you're looking at protecting the environment, I think this, compared to what you're allowing in the district already, is a much less impactful use of that property.
Scott?
Now, if I understand this correctly, if this zone change goes through, each project will still have to obtain a special use permit, and every project would have to go through all the technical review to address all of the concerns that they're putting forth, correct?
Correct.
I
Karen?
would certainly
Correct.
rather see solar versus the wind power. And I think they should go back to hydro. I'm more efficient.
Wood River.
Instead of taking the dams out, we should be using the water.
Someone who hasn't spoken yet? Yes, ma'am, down in the back.
If our lightning strikes a problem.
Could you please stand so we can hear you
What's your
better?
name, please?
My
Your
name
name?
is Leslie Bates. Hi. Our lightning strikes a problem on these solar panels. I read that because of, you can have wide open fields with many solar panels. When it's hit by lightning, it releases toxic chemicals. I'm not sure, are the safety protocols in place to deal with lightning strikes?
If I may. So we've had now, just in the state of Rhode Island, I'm sorry, in the state of Rhode Island, we have 4 systems operating. And we've had these systems operating since 2013. One is at the Big John Layton's Christmas Tree Farm in West Greenwich. One is budding a residential property in Middletown. And one is in a low-density residential area in Johnston, Rhode Island. And the last one is in Quonset Development Corporation down in Davisville Road. We've gone through huge storms, and not one issue of any type of electrical strike has absolutely ever happened. I would say that if you're looking at electrical strikes, you should be more concerned with the high tension wires that are operating in and around the properties. These are not your wires that are up here. These are basically somewhat low voltage wires, the wires that we would be connected to. The solar facility is not a high voltage system. It is a low voltage system. That's why they call it DC, or direct current. Now, we do connect to a utility structure, but we connect to the utility structure that's already in place. We do not run poles, going up and down the streets with all new wires and so on, especially in this situation. And that's why I was simply talking about, why the utility is very, very concerned to make sure that we do not impact their network as well. But I used to put up wind turbines, I don't do it here in Rhode Island, but I used to put them up in the Midwest and in Alaska and so on. And yes, in those instances, because of the height, and because of other types of situations, lightning strikes did become an issue. But clearly, I have not heard of a lightning strike issue in any way, shape, or form, even at a wind turbine here in the state of Rhode Island.
If I could just add one thing to that. The other thing is the electrical code requires a grounding for any part of the design. So, that's kind of anticipated and also part of the design to make sure that it's not an issue as well. As Frank said, it hasn't been the case in any of the projects we've involved in.
It's a good point, thank you.
Anyone else who has not spoken yet? We'll go over here. Yes, sir. Stand up and your name and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Ed Poyer, live in Richmond, or Small Box Trail. Help me understand a couple of things. Firstly, help me understand what we're talking about. Based on the advantages and the constraints offered by one vendor, why we are changing the rules that have served us so well for R3 zoning forever. That might impact any vendor. We could easily have an extremely unscrupulous vendor coming in 9 months, a year, or whatever, competing for the same properties, not offering us the assurances that these gentlemen are offering us. Meanwhile, if we had changed the R3 zoning, that ship would have sailed. So now this unscrupulous vendor, who, by the way, is probably has a higher profit margin because, oh yeah, see, unscrupulous. Maybe wouldn't have the setbacks they're offering. Maybe wouldn't have the remediation and the restoration that they're offering. So why are we considering changing R3 zoning rather than simply looking at this project on its merits on those particular properties and then giving them a variance on that property for that one time, one-shot deal? That way we know the whole, we see their whole hand. So that's the first thing
Could I address that?
Or I have a second
Okay.
item too, which maybe can be addressed simultaneously. And in general, wouldn't it be better to site these near the users of the power? Maybe in some of the industrial areas in Providence or Central Falls. You know, you drive down 95 and you see vast areas of what used to be mills being leveled. Those are essentially brown fields at this point. So would it make more sense to put solar panels there, right near all those big high-rises that Elorza wants to build in Providence? So that's the second thing. So help me understand the first, help me understand the second.
The first one, I think.
Yeah, Paul, can I answer that question?
Legally, yes.
The restrictions that this particular applicant has offered would not just apply to this applicant. They would apply to anybody who wanted to develop one of these in the R3 zoning district, because it's in the form of a zoning ordinance and it would apply to everybody. A zoning ordinance change is not forever. Zoning ordinances get changed all the time. If you were to have someone come in and ask if they could do the same thing in R2, you could say no for any reason that you wanted to, and then it'd be final.
We could say no for any reason in R3 as well.
Yes.
And where they are considering putting this solar array, I presume, we're not looking to change, as far as I'm concerned anyway, we're not looking to change R3 zoning throughout the entire town. I'm not looking to do that.
Well, it would change R3 zoning throughout the entire town, but not all of the entire town would be able to satisfy the criteria in this ordinance. That's why it was made restricted.
Yeah, it's only small.
Just a restricted area.
Yeah.
Just that restricted area.
It applies to all of the property in the R3 zone, but it also has all of the restrictions in this draft ordinance. And that would substantially narrow down the amount of R3 that would be eligible for this kind of development.
And there are some of the parcels, if I understand from earlier questioning, those 3 contiguous pieces of property that was discussed, which may have sold their property rights, development rights,
right.
and so therefore would not be eligible. Is that correct?
Yeah.
They would not be eligible to do
Correct.
anything like that nature.
If there's a conservation easement on the property, they would not be eligible.
And so that would mean, technically speaking, there are only probably 2 sites that would be available to do this.
I don't know the answer to
Because
that.
they were talking about 5. Is that correct when you were talking about 5 sites?
There are 5 sites that I was able to pick out using the GIS data.
Yeah.
And then I guess it is in the land evidence records whether or not the development's rights are
Right.
intact. And I don't know for
We need to
sure.
know that. Okay, we're going to have to find that out.
Well,
Actually,
but we're not going through just,
I want to know whether or not those development rights are indeed been sold, on those pieces of property.
Well, that those 5 parcels are not necessarily definitive. Somebody who owns 2 adjacent parcels could put them together and make one 11-acre or 12-acre or 13-acre parcel.
Right.
That would be, if that property owner could meet all of the other criteria in the ordinance and satisfy all the conditions for a special use permit before the zoning board, then they would be able to do the same thing. But I think the number of properties that would be able to meet all of those criteria are a lot more limited than all of the R3 property in town.
Yeah, I just have a problem with the R3 zoning in the entire town coming under that situation.
Well, it would be all of the R3 zone, with those restrictions. They go together.
There's a lot of restrictions under this whole thing.
Yeah.
A lot that would prohibit anybody else from
I know.
taking advantage of this situation.
But restrictions can be removed.
But again, it would have to
They
be
can
by
only
the
be
town
removed
council.
if you remove them.
Right, another council somewhere down the line could say, you know, we're gonna remove those restrictions because we wanna bring something else into
Sure,
this,
they
you know what I'm
could.
saying? So it's kinda like, 6 of one, half dozen of another.
But doesn't that hold true for almost all the ordinances?
Yeah, it does. It does hold true for probably any ordinance.
Each one of these solar projects stands on its own merit too, that it's not a blanket approval of all of these projects. Each project still goes through its own individual approval cycle. So we're not saying let's take all our R3 property and build nothing but solar farms on it. I don't think that's the case
Well, I
at
understand
all.
that. You couldn't do it anyway. And
But-
like Mark was saying, Scott was saying, each project has to go through everything that they go through.
My concern
Is that
is,
correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
as we say no, our taxes continue to go up. As we say no, those same properties might turn into golf courses, which will pollute and contaminate the environment even more and bring even less tax revenue to the town. As far as building, they all feed the grid, so it doesn't really matter where you build the solar farms. So we've said no to transportation hubs, we've said no to big box stores. We got to say yes to something or else we're going to be bankrupt.
Any further folks out here in the audience? That young lady right there? Yes, yes, ma'am. No, you
Me.
with the white sweater? Yeah.
Okay, hi. So I had prepared statements, but I feel like if I
Could you
read
repeat,
all-
I'm sorry, could you repeat your name and where you're
I'm
from?
Suzanne Payton, and I am a Richmond resident.
Thank you so much.
Yep. So I'm here as a part of the Richmond Rural Preservation Land Trust. You appointed me, as well as many others, to the Land Trust. And as you know, our mission is to work to preserve the rural character of our town. So we've discussed this at the last couple of board meetings that we've had, and we were unanimous in our opposition to the R3 zoning. And just to be clear, very supportive of solar installations on homes and you know, for farm and business operations to power the energy needs. I'm actually putting solar panels on my own home. I'm very supportive of alternative energy, absolutely, and supportive of the efforts that the town has made to reduce energy demand and encourage our landowners that happened at the beginning of the meeting. The big issue is that we have approval to do these sorts of larger solar arrays or solar installations in our commercial and industrial zoned areas where we already have vast areas of impervious surface, you know, the tops of buildings and these other areas. I don't know why that's less feasible. Maybe they could respond to that question, but we know for a fact from our most recent comprehensive plan that when we poll the residents of Richmond and ask them the top 3 reasons that they move to Richmond or stay in Richmond, 83% of them list the rural character, the rural atmosphere, the rural feel of the town. Some of them go so far as to talk about the forests and the hiking trails and the hunting and fishing opportunities or rivers. But hands down, unanimously, number 1, the rural character. So the R3 zoning, I feel like, you know, we feel like, was set aside to preserve that rural character. I completely sympathize with our need to support economic development and figure out how to balance that in our town. So I guess we would just recommend that those types of uses be directed towards those commercial areas and industrial areas where you don't have to clear a forest or have a residential area, a neighborhood looking at a big industrial solar installation, you know, in their backyard, so to speak.
Okay,
Huh?
we're going to have to start limiting time
Okay.
because we're running out of time.
So that's
But I appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. Iva,
Iva Lipton, I'm a resident of the
10
town.
seconds or less. No.
I'm going to speak for this.
Yeah.
I think this is a good idea. We do have to start saying yes to something. And I was up the other day, by the Exeter Post Office.
Hmm?
And there's a solar system there.
Yes, there is.
And you can't even see it. I drove right around and you can't see it at all. And it didn't bother me a bit. So I think maybe we should say yes to this.
Thank you.
We did get a complaint about a woman driving through solar.
Yes, Jim.
Jim Turk, Richmond Conservation Commission. So at our last Conservation Commission meeting, we had a healthy discussion about the proposed amendment. And in short, we feel that the town should not support this amendment at this time. We thought that the best approach would be for the town council to appoint a committee that includes the town planner and other folks, that could be on the town, to have a discussion rather than having necessarily industry right now driving what the amendment says. We think that the town themselves should really be making a strong approach in overall the Conservation Commission support of solar power. We certainly understand the importance of the economics of helping our town, and so we certainly don't want to stop that, but we want to do the right thing without being driven by industry too quickly.
I had that in my comments too, strategic planning.
Strategic planning. Well, we have received information from the planner, the town planner.
She's here.
She's here.
Oh, is she here?
Do you have
Yes, she is.
something to offer?
Good. You did send us some information about it. So.
I did.
Yes, you did. And so this.
Well, it was mainly a summary of the proposal and how we got here. It's a trade-off, certainly. On one hand, yes, there are uses that could be more impactful depending on your definition of impact, whether it's impact to the land itself and the forest and the rural nature and the habitat and those values, those intrinsic values, versus impact to the school system and municipal services. So it comes down to your definition of impact and whether you think that the R3 zone is meant for this type of manufacturing sort of facility. Certainly on one hand, the 11 acres as a minimum means that you'll see a lot more forest cut, but the trade-off is that anything less than 11 acres means you'll have a lot more parcels in the R3 zone that could qualify, and you'd see more of the area impacted. So that's the trade-off there. It's a touchy subject for a lot of rural communities. Hopkinton is undergoing their fair share of scrutiny right now with that extremely large facility that they just approved. I would just caution the council that, as Karen pointed out, this is a proposal for not this specific applicant, not this specific project that they have in mind if this were to be approved, but rather for the entire R3 zone. So you are going to probably get other applicants, and you are maybe setting a precedent. You're not setting a precedent, but there may be perception that you're setting a precedent for future applicants to come forward and say, we want to lift those restrictions that you put in R3, or we want to look at it for R2 or even R1. So you have to think down the line how the town could change.
Yes, I personally own a decent piece of property myself, but I'm in R2. And it's all forested.
And I mean, the planning board and the council before you were one of the first towns in the state to put a solar ordinance system in place at all.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, you envisioned it as being appropriate in industrial, commercial,
right,
business zones, and that's where it's stood. And there was another ordinance passed last year that allowed it in all zones, but only as accessory to a farm to incentivize farming,
mm-hmm.
and with their own restrictions. And so we've certainly seen applications flowing in as a result of those two ordinances that you already have in place.
Okay.
One
Yes,
more.
sir.
Yeah, hi, my name is Dan Arkowski. I live in Escapod.
Could you please stand so we can see who you
Dan
are?
Arkowski, I live in Escapod. First of all, I agree with Boyers completely. And the comment that the planner just made, is something you guys need to understand. The gentleman from East Greenwich, he pointed out that these are polysilicon type structures today. The technology on these today are far different than they were 25 years ago. Gentleman could probably tell you the order of magnitude, how much more efficient they are today than they were then. Can you share that information since this is your business? This is rough order of magnitude, just quick answer.
Sure. I would say that we are from a 12% efficiency rating from way back when to a 17% efficiency rating today on the projects or the panels that are manufactured and delivered to us.
Where do you project that to be in 10 to 15 years? 17% to what number? Double?
No.
50% more?
No. I would say that right now in the lab, there are panels that are seeing a 22% of efficiency rating. But nothing that is economically feasible to buy at this time.
Okay. So Mike, thank you. My point is, as you go forward and the technology improves, you can take out that minimum number of megawatts per acre on a smaller property. So that you're going to have pressure on those rules, your children's, your grandchildren's generation to do it on R2 and R1 because it'll be more feasible. And you'll be flooded in these meetings, town council meetings, and the zoning meetings with all kinds of people from all over the country wanting to come in and give you a great deal on these solar installations. And these gentlemen know a lot, and have a lot of respect for what they do. I'm a pretty green, crunchy person myself. But I would make the point, which is really important. You talk to one group of people, they've showed you one set of economics, okay? They've told you what they think the impact is going to be. You need to do an impact study yourself, and if you don't do the right thing and reject this entirely, and you do go forward, for good reasons, we do need economic base in the town. We really do need that. Make sure you get a heck of a lot more money. These gentlemen are looking to make a ton of money. Utilities are going to make a ton of money. And I heard some numbers like $24,000 a year or something like that for a 50-acre lot. You should be getting 10 times that at least, because there's a lot of dollars flowing through. A lot of people are going to make a ton of money for a very long time on these. And if the town entertains this and decides to make that kind of a big impact on our environment, don't get sold out cheap on it. That's all I'm saying. Get an independent study, get some other people in here, do your homework, and get the most money for the town. If you don't do the right thing, reject it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, the yellow shirt, you had your hand up before?
Dave Woodmansey, Richmond resident. Just as a question, do we know what the total acreage is on the 5 parcels for their developable that we're talking about that this is going to impact?
The total acreage period or the total developable acreage?
Well, either one. I mean, we know one parcel is not developable, so the total developable.
Approximately 175 acres in total, roughly. In total.
That would be developable.
That would be developed.
Potentially.
In that particular area.
That's correct.
Pending the research in the town land records.
With that in mind, is there something the town could do within the ordinance or whatever to limit the total number of acres that the town allows solar arrays to be built on?
But you're
and
telling...
would that help?
Like a cap?
Yes, like a cap.
You're telling people what they can and can't do with the land that they own. And that's
well, by not changing the ordinance, you're doing the same thing. But you're not telling any specific person, you're just telling everyone that if you're going to do it, you better jump on it because there is a cap.
The whole
purpose. So as a whole in the whole town,
yeah,
only allow X amount of acreage for
exactly.
solar development. So I see what you're saying.
Well, technically speaking, we already have that because solars are solar parks or whatever you want to call them are really constrained only to industrial areas in the town, according to our zoning now.
Industrial and general business.
General business.
And
a solar
flex
park.
tech. Yeah.
And
So
not flex tech, right.
Yes, like a sector.
In the flex, okay.
Well, there's a gentleman all the way back.
So we have certain areas where it is restricted at this point right now.
Has any?
Right, there are people
anybody-
expressed concerns that all of a sudden, all of our R3 zoning was gonna turn into solar farms.
Yeah, well, we don't
As soon as
want
we change
that.
the ordinance, and I was just suggesting that if we cap the total acreage that the town allows, that would alleviate that huge concern.
Mhm.
That's what this ordinance amendment does, in fact, but it doesn't establish a cap. It limits the type of property that can be used, and so in effect, it creates a cap.
All of its own.
Yeah.
All
Have
over.
you
All
studied
over.
this amendment?
I
To
wrote
any
it.
degree? But you wrote the
Yeah.
amendment. Okay. Then that answers my
Finding the
question.
districts, yes, I wrote it, yeah.
No, I mean, not our current one, this one here.
This, yes,
Okay.
I did.
I just want to make sure.
Mr. Craven and his office originally submitted something, and the planning board and I and Juliana worked on it and came up with this, and it was acceptable to them.
The only scenario in which it's not a cap is if someone were to merge parcels to create enough acreage.
Mhm.
So then it wouldn't be the existing 5, it could be more.
Okay, I think we'll
Close public hearing?
close the public hearing at this
Motion
point.
to close public hearing?
I second that motion.
If we close this, then we vote later, okay. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, what is what is the will of the council?
Before you discuss
I-
it, you should probably have a motion on the floor and then ask for discussion. That's the right.
A motion to do whatever and
Yeah.
then discussion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the zoning changes for the R3 zoning districts to encompass the rules that have been set forth for solar
The
solar
ordinance
farms.
that was advertised.
You understand?
Correct.
Second?
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Just discussion,
For discussion, right, this is only a discussion.
yes.
I'd like to discuss it a lot.
Okay, we approved, right?
We
No,
haven't
you-
voted yet. We
No,
didn't
you
vote.
have a motion, you have a motion,
We have
and
a
you have
motion
a
on the floor.
second.
Second open
And
discussion.
now you have discussion
Discussion.
before you vote on it.
Right, so we're having discussion.
Right.
We didn't vote on it, though.
No, we're not voting yet.
What do you have?
You're having discussion.
I would just like to
Yeah.
have,
Richard,
I would just like to have more information from them. I'd like to have more,
Information pertaining
Just-
to what?
our ability to not lose our open space, our ability, is there an ability for us to say, people can't take parcels, 2 separate parcels, put them together and say, hey, I meet this criteria, I wanna have a solar panel. Like the gentleman in the back said, there's a lot of discussion there's a lot of information that we need to look at. And always going forward, I'm not a no person. Yes, we need to bring in income. We need to make sure that it's going to be feasible for a long time. It's not gonna hurt the future of our town, and we're able to protect ourselves so that we don't have road developers or road companies or people unscrupulously coming in and finagling their way through to put and cut out another 100 acres or whatever it is. That's my personal opinion. I would like to have more information. I'd like to see if there's more options for us for maybe more income from the company, not based just on $5 a kilowatt hour. There's a lot of money there.
Well, and these gentlemen have already put out and said that they will pay what we require
Yep.
for the equipment. They were willing to waive what Rhode Island
Yep.
put as a limitation. I mean, they've already opened themselves up, opened their wallets up.
The other
So,
thing
I mean,
is-
may I finish, please?
Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
We cannot go much beyond where we're at right now. I mean, we can't suggest that, every unscrupulous person on the planet is gonna start coming and taking care of this, taking advantage of this. We can't control that. What we can do is the best that we can do for right now. And these gentlemen have done their homework. And what Karen and the town planner and everybody else involved in coming up with this ordinance has really addressed a lot. There's a lot of restriction here that everybody's placed on this to happen. There's, from what I can see, very little that can be taken advantage of. There's 5 sites right now. Yes, they could probably band together and put more sites together, R3 sites. But that's gonna come before the town council anyway, so we can either
No, it
approve it
wouldn't
or,
have to.
No.
we can't?
No, but if I can address that question about what the process would be to get this approved.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has a property that meets all these criteria, that person would need to go through an advisory development plan review by the planning board and a public hearing on a special use permit before the zoning board. The way that we designed this ordinance, there was a suggestion that the ordinance require notice to individual abutters for the meeting on the development plan review. And the reason that I didn't want to do it that way is that development plan review does not require a public hearing the way that a special use permit does before the zoning board. So the way that we wrote this ordinance, the application would come first to the zoning board, and the zoning board would open the public hearing. Individual abutters must be notified of the zoning board public hearing, and it would also be advertised. All of the abutters would presumably be present when the public hearing is opened. The zoning board would immediately vote to send the application to the planning board for an advisory development plan review. That would make the abutters aware that the planning board is going to go through a review of the site and then make a recommendation to the zoning board, so that the abutters would be aware of both the planning board meeting and the continued zoning board public hearing. So when an applicant is going through this process of approval, the applicant has to submit very detailed plans both to the zoning board and the planning board, and go through 2 public meetings to get this approved. And not just abutters, but anyone can speak at either one of these meetings.
So there's, my point still is that there's quite a few restrictions in place.
There are quite a few restrictions.
That will.
And it's not going to be approved in private in a closet with the door closed. It's going to be right out there in the open, and anybody can make any kind of comment that they want and express any kind of concern that they have about a particular project that's proposed.
Okay.
That works for me.
Mark?
Pretty much everything was covered. I mean, to me, I'm a land rights guy. If you own a piece of land, you should have the right, within reason, to develop and profit from that land. And when we talk about open spaces, we're talking about open spaces that are owned, pristine pieces of land that are owned by someone. And they should have some rights to develop that land and profit from that land. Or else why own it?
Karen, with the 11-acre minimum, that restricts R2 and R1.
Well, it's not permitted in R2 and R1 at all. It would not be permitted in R2 and R1 unless you did another amendment to the zoning ordinance.
You have to do the same thing we're doing now.
Right. So.
Ron?
I'm ready to go move forward. You know, I agree with each and every one of you. I mean, I have my concerns, but I think what worries me, one of the things that worries me concerns me is that suddenly someone has a 100-acre lot or 50, whatever it may be, and suddenly someone indicated 33 houses on that. It really bothers me. And so maybe this is a better way of, income coming into the town instead of, people just got their tax bill this week, and I can't tell you how many people said to me, I don't know how I can afford it,
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody saw their taxes. Personally,
Yeah.
I think most of them went up.
I'm yelling at myself already.
Speak to your local town council.
I am. Speak to him every morning in the mirror.
But just remember one thing about that. The increase in the taxes was due 100% because of the school budget, not the town.
You're
share.
absolutely right.
And the loss of state aid.
And the loss of state aid.
Absolutely right.
And currently the General Assembly
But
has not passed the budget.
Until we can change one of those two, which those are Mohammed Mountain moving.
Okay.
Could I make one more suggestion before you vote?
I'm not going to vote.
There's only one condition that you do have to satisfy when you vote on an amendment to the zoning ordinance, and that is that it has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Right.
So if you could amend the motion and the second to include adoption of the information about consistency with the comprehensive plan that was in the town planner's memo, then that would cover that.
That would have to be in the motion.
Yeah.
Motion's been made, so would you add that to the motion, please?
And to the amendment, right?
To the second.
I would like to give my comments now. Now that everybody else has given theirs. I am not totally against this proposal. I do see the viability of it, and I do think that the idea of, R3 zoning is 3 acre lots. 3 acre lots to build a house, okay? I'm in R2 zoning, so we have approximately 2 acres in that area. And when I first came to town, there was no zoning, so anybody built a house anywhere, whatever they wanted to do. That was a long time ago. And zoning was put in for very good reasons, to control development of the community. And that's what we're doing. We don't want to overdevelop the town so that it looks more like Warwick or something like that. So we put in these restrictions, we put in these zonings and so forth and so on. I have concerns about this particular area because of the fact that it does overlie the main aquifer in this whole area. And if we build houses on it, I understand. If we build, it's going to be a long time before you build a whole lot of houses on that whole section of land, obviously. It's 3 acres of land, and that's not going to be cheap. And the houses that you build on them are not going to be cheap either. So we're kind of like restricting people to some degree being able to afford to live in town. Not just because of high taxes, but because of high expensive houses, like Barrington or something. And East Greenwich, no offense in East Greenwich. I love East Greenwich, it's a nice town. Lots of friends there. I think I would like to see somewhat what Richard was saying and somewhat what somebody out there was saying, I forget who. I think we should have a little bit more information. I see conflicting interests between planning board, zoning board, conservation commission. Haven't heard anything from EDC, what they think about that, if they have an opinion at all. It just seems that not everybody's on board. I'm getting different information. And I think it might be a good idea to have people from those particular boards, along with council members or whatever, to have one final discussion as to how this is going to work out. How we're going to do this. That's my opinion. That's what I would like to see.
So are you suggesting that we postpone this to continue the public hearing to?
I think we could, well, I don't know if we continue the public hearing. I guess you'd have to continue it.
Otherwise, you would have to re-advertise it.
You have to re-advertise, so you could continue it to the August meeting.
Well, we can have its own meeting, right, if we wanted to.
Well, you could, but you got the fair, everybody's going
Yeah.
away, doing this, doing that, and we got the one meeting in August. and
Right.
I think it's not that bad, or that long a period of time.
Mm.
We're only talking about 3 or 4 weeks or more.
Is that-
Do it
Is that okay?
to the meeting in August, and in the meantime, before that happens, I would like people from the boards that I named to be able to come together and meet and talk about this.
With the exception of the zoning board.
Well, we can't have the zoning board.
No, because they're quasi-judicial.
Yes. We can have the zoning board of review, though.
No.
Not
That's
zoning
the
of
same
review.
board.
Oh, it's the same board, I thought they're
Yeah.
two different ones.
Yeah.
All right, so planning board, conservation commission, who's the other one?
Land trust.
Okay, the land trust,
Economic
EDC,
development.
I think the only one you haven't heard from is EDC. I
Yeah.
think everyone else has
EDC.
expressed their opinion.
Yeah, they have.
at least one member from those boards, plus us, will sit down and discuss this and thrash it out with the town administrator, town attorney, town planner, and so forth and so on. That's what I would like to see.
I think your idea is great, but I think, just to let you know, Marcus just indicated he might not be here for the next meeting.
When is our next council?
August 15th.
Yeah.
Will you be here? That's Washington County Fair Week, right?
Yes.
There.
We'll do that. No, I think it's the day after is the
The
fair.
night before. Oh, right, yeah.
The 16th is the beginning of the fair.
Right. Can you be here then? Are you here the 15th?
No, I'm out of town on the 15th.
Well, we can have a conference call. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till the first meeting in September.
Is that an idea? Is that doable?
I want to be able to vote my.
Well, I mean, we've already heard from, except for the EDC, we've already heard from the
You
other.
have members of the EDC. You want to reopen the
There's a
public
gen-
hearing.
there's a
You
gentleman
have
there
3
from-
members of the EDC here now.
Okay.
Do they have an opinion on it?
Does ETC
If
people are
they
here?
do- If they do, you have to reopen the public hearing.
I'd like to make a
Well,
motion.
we already closed the public hearing.
You can reopen.
You can reopen
I'd like to make a motion to reopen the public hearing to hear from some comments from the EDC.
Does that automatically?
No, you have to second it and then vote on it.
What about the other motion that's already on the floor?
There's already a motion on the floor
Yeah, I know.
for the discussion.
That was a
That's-
discussion.
Yeah, that's gonna, no, there is a motion to approve what was advertised.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to withdraw
Yeah,
the motion to approve what was advertised.
right.
And who made the second? You did the second, or you made the motion?
I made the
Who
motion.
made the motion?
Who made the second?
I think it was Richard. Was it?
Can we get
No,
Richard
it
to-
was, it was Gary. Gary made the second. Mark made the original motion, Gary second.
Do you want to withdraw it?
Withdraw your second?
I want to withdraw it just to get comments from the EDC and then close that back off.
Okay, now you can make the
And now
motion.
you,
to
yeah,
reopen.
now you need a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Please, folks, hard to concentrate.
I'm sorry.
So,
Seconded?
Is it
Okay.
gonna be a
And
second?
now you vote on it.
okay.
All those in favor of reopening? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now it's reopened. Now, anybody from the EDC who would like to put in their 5 cents worth? We have 1, 2, 3 members. Okay, Mr. Woodman didn't.
Dave Woodman, Richmond resident, chair of EDC. I just want to point out that any opinions you're gonna get are opinions of 3 individuals who happen to sit on the EDC. We have not discussed this issue, so you're not gonna get a consensus from what the EDC feels should happen with this.
Just want your
situation.
personal opinion.
So, and that's fine. I just want to preface it by saying that you're gonna get 3 personal opinions.
That's fine.
Me personally, I feel I support the amendment, the ordinance change. I think there's several things that have been brought up that are positive about this. At this point, where the town is at, I'm not going to talk about where we're going to be 80 years from now or 6 generations from now, but where we're at right now. I think it's the right thing to do for several reasons. I feel like people outside of Richmond look to us as a group that, always says no and pushes things and people away. And if we ever want to see things happen with the other parts of town where we're allowed to do developments and stuff, we have to start showing people outside of the town that we're willing to work and do something rather than just always do nothing or prevent people from doing something. Again, just my opinion.
Thank you. Larry?
My name is Larry Casey. I'm a resident of Richmond, Rhode Island, and also a member of the EDC. And
and been in business now for 52 years. And all the proposals I've ever seen to town, I've very rarely ever seen a proposal come where a vendor, such as Energy Systems, comes in and says, listen, we're going to, even though we don't have to pay you tangible taxes on our equipment that we're going to bring into you, we're willing to pay you your tangible taxes. So we're not asking for it. But then we're going to share in our profits, okay? And we're going to give you the more concentration we can get and the more energy we can get out of these, we're going to share that with the town. Whereas everybody that comes into a town takes out. The only way we have to tax people today in town is on their tangible assets. Okay, and if they take the car tax out of it and take some of the other subsidies out of it, where are we going to be? Here's somebody that's bringing you revenue into the town. It has absolutely no impact on the school system. It has no impact on the road system. It has no impact on the sewer of the waste disposal system. No impact on the water. No impact any place other than to bring clean energy to your town and bring it into a future. This energy is already sold, gentlemen. Okay, people want this energy. I believe that it's committed to the town of Central Falls, which this energy is going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the efforts that you've asked this energy company and the engineers and the money they've spent to duplicate what they've already duplicated throughout this whole country and found to be the best way to provide energy. And for us to challenge that here tonight over the small amount, how big is the town of Richmond? How many acres?
Who was it, 26?
We're talking about 175 acres. It doesn't amount to 1% of the whole total town.
It's 44 square miles, I think, the town.
And we're talking about 175 acres. We're talking less than 1% of the whole town. And for us to turn our back, and for us to stall this, where projects like this are developing all over the state and all over New England, it's unconscionable that we don't make a decision tonight.
Amen.
I just want to make
We're just looking for EDC folks right now.
I'm sorry, I thought that this was a public discussion.
But we're looking,
Our
our initial
EDC.
choice was to hear from the EDC because we hadn't heard
They
from
haven't
them
had a
yet.
chance to put their 5 cents in.
They had a chance.
Well,
And
maybe
as far as I
so.
know, this is public discussion again.
Well, I'd like to hear from the EDC. Okay, after the last person from the EDC,
Oh, okay, I lost track.
then you can say something, but only for a couple of minutes, that's it.
It's just a
Okay?
question.
Yes, Joe.
I ditto both my peers, but I just want to make sure as a council that you each understand what's involved with this, as well as the town residents. We do need to move forward. I do support the fact that we do need to maintain our environment, but for the 10 years I was on council, we've talked about this many times. We do need to be strategic in what we bring in, and we need to get revenue into this town, but not to detriment our environment. So I like the fact that they're taking a lot of time to look at the environment and so on. I just came back from California recently, and when they have their heat wave, solar energy is what saved the state of California from going on a shortage of energy. So we are behind the curve, but ahead of the curve in the fact that Rhode Island is just getting started. We do have strategic areas we can do this, so as long as we maintain those areas, and as long as this council and our zoning boards really look at, if we have all these restrictions in, and we really look at every project that comes through before we make an approval, then I would support moving forward at this time, because we do have to make some changes strategically in this town, as we found out when we did open our tax bills. I was not happy.
None of us were. Thank you. Okay. Last person.
The question I wanted to put forward was, are there items that are being offered voluntarily by this vendor? So they're offering it voluntarily for this, such as, I believe, willing to pay the tangible property tax, and perhaps the remediation bond.
That's not voluntary. That's mandatory.
Yeah, my question is basically, want to make sure that the council distinguishes between what's being offered voluntarily and what is being put into the change of the zoning Because the one we're gonna live with is the change to the zoning. So we don't want that to be, sweetened with the delicious sauce of the voluntary offerings.
I understand, thank you.
I would you like to close the public hearing?
Okay, so.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we can.
Now you need a motion to approve or disapprove.
To approve or whatever.
And in the motion, you should include adoption of the,
I think Sarah wrote that.
findings of
With
the,
that
the findings of the, town planner with respect to the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
So I'd like to
Move.
remove to make the motion,
To
the same
approve the
motion
ordinance
to
that
approve
was
the ordinance
Advertised.
that was advertised with the exception that
Adopting
we
the
added. in.
comprehensive plan findings of the town planner.
Yes.
Right. Got that, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Surprise.
Was it unanimous?
Did Rich vote yet?
Yep,
Yes,
he
yes,
said.
okay.
Everybody was unanimous.
Okay.
It was a unanimous vote.
Yeah.
And now we all have to live with it.
Thank you for your
Bob.
diligence.
Thank you so much,
Yourself.
appreciate it. Karen, the same vote yes or no?
They all voted yes.
I'm gonna take a 2-minute recess.
Beat 'em up?
You gonna announce it?
I gotta see.
Paul, you gonna announce it, so we can't, otherwise we're gonna go on?
I'll take a 2-minute recess.
Taught him everything he knows, right, Bob?
Oh, my back is killing me.
Okay, we should be able to get through a lot of this pretty quickly, so just move on.
Quickly from driving in the parking lot. I'm on the job. Cover Southern Rhode Island and all. How are you? So I've been driving 30 years. It's a grueling horrible ride up Route 9 through Middletown. How long is this?
Okay, we're on appointments and resignations, so we need to go through these. We'll start with number 1, and whoever wants to make the motion, go right ahead.
Motion to approve the request of Peter V. August for a reappointment to the IT Advisory Committee for a term expiring August 31, 2019.
Seconded.
All those in favor of reappointing him?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to request to approve Robert E. Cuddle for a reappointment to the Zoning Board of Review for a term ending July 31, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to accept the resignation of Andrew Webb
With regret.
with regret from the Charahoe School Committee.
Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Who's speaking?
Are you going to have a time frame where you'll take applications for that? How does that work?
We'll get to that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, motion to accept the resignation with regret from Peter Fagulo from the IT Advisory Committee.
I second that.
Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now we just advertise for these positions that are going right?
No.
No.
Under the charter, you have to appoint in order the top vote getters in the last,
School committee?
yeah, election. And then if no one is available or willing to serve, then you can take applications and appoint whoever is a qualified elector that you want to appoint.
So who is that, Bill Day?
Bill Day.
Bill Day.
Well, no, Bill Day was, I believe, a write-in candidate.
He was a write-in candidate.
And under the charter amendment recently, write-in candidates are not
Are not
considered,
qualified.
yeah, they're not candidates who lost.
So, is there anyone else?
I don't know.
No,
I
there
don't
was,
believe so. That was it.
there was no one else on
Oh,
running
wait a
for
minute.
school
Did you-
committee.
No.
You
Was
better
it?
double check before you advertise.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
double
they
check.
ran unopposed. There was no one, there were 2 Republican candidates and I
Yeah.
believe no
And a write-in.
Democratic candidates and 1 write-in
It's,
candidate.
yeah, it's possible that there weren't any to appoint.
But you're
He
correct, the
was-
IT advisory, we just posted.
You can just post that. yeah.
Yes.
The other one, just
Double Morales.
double check, make sure that we're,
He was a Republican candidate, and he lost in the primary.
yes.
Bill, he's a Democrat,
Bill,
isn't
he
No,
ran
he
as a
is.
Republican.
he? Oh, he did, okay, all right.
So he was on the ticket for the primary, he lost in the
Primary is not
primary.
a general election.
So then he ran in the general as a write-in.
Yeah,
Right.
so that doesn't count.
Okay.
So you can take applications and you can appoint whoever you want to.
So we take applications for the school committee one.
Right.
Okay. So we can post, do we post that?
You can do it however you want to do it.
How do you suggest we do it?
Post it on the
Just
website.
post it on the town website.
Put a notice up on the wall on the town
How long of a
website.
deadline?
When's the deadline? 2020. No. I'm just-
Why don't you make the deadline August 13th?
Why the 13th?
Because you're meeting on the 15th.
Oh, okay. But you want to do it that quick?
Well, you
Yeah,
want to
no,
do it
yeah.
that quick?
Yeah, let's get.
That's a holiday though, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Right?
Are people going to have a chance to even see everything and
I don't know.
submit applications?
I'm just suggesting that you time it so that you can make an appointment either at your next meeting or the meeting after that.
I'm gonna do it for that Friday, the 11th, 10th or something.
I'd like, honestly, I'd like to see it the first meeting in September as the deadline.
So make a motion to set the deadline for
Okay.
August 20th or something
Yeah, you got
like
to make
that.
the deadline before.
Yeah,
the first
it
meeting
has to
in
be a week
September.
before so they can show up
Yeah.
on the
The meeting
agenda.
is
Yeah.
the 5th, so you'd want it by, I mean, the deadline we try to adhere to is Is
No, they want it
Wednesday the
before that.
30th? Right, so I'm saying maybe you do it on the 28th or the
Right.
29th to give us an opportunity.
August,
to-
what day is August 28th, Karen? Do you know?
Monday's the 28th.
Beautiful, last day expires
That
August
sounds
28th.
good. 28th is good.
You wanna do it? So moved, I'll make
Yeah.
that motion, that
Make
we
the-
advertise it for August 28th, 2017, so that it will be on the first
Seconded.
agenda item.
Okay, motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Gary. All right, so that takes care of that. Now, licenses. Number 1, The Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid. This is going in where Fetch was, next to Kingston Pizza.
Do we have anybody here?
Where is that going in?
Where Fetch was, next to Kingston Pizza, right here on Richmond TownCouncil.
What was the-
Oh, the big house.
Fetch.
Wait a minute.
We have more
Fetch.
consignment shop than solar farms.
Yeah. Which might be changed.
And she has, I don't know, because I know everyone who's here, so she's not here.
Has she paid all her?
She's paid everything.
It says everything's okay.
She owns another consignment shop in North Kingstown as well, although she is a resident of Richmond, and she's looking to expand. She's opening here too.
Okay, and the name of the place is
Jessica's Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the license for, the holiday sales license for Jessica's Little Mermaid Children's Consignment.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Somebody from the Country Garden Grill. here?
Now we have the Country Garden Grill, a victualling
Which I'm really
license.
surprised they're not here.
Where is the Country Garden Grill?
So the Country Garden Grill is where Black Sheep Barbecue was.
Yeah, the empty lot next to the
Oh.
liquor store there, where the barbecue bus used to be.
Oh, it's
Right.
right there.
Yeah, there's no barbecue bus this year, it's the
Yeah,
Country
and just
Garden
talk to
Grill.
them.
I know, I usually enjoyed the smell when I drove by.
Did you get anything though? Did you buy
I
anything?
don't eat barbecue.
Yeah. They said it was very good.
Okay, let's have a motion.
Motion to accept the request from Country Garden Grill for victualling license.
Everything been paid?
Except for, with the exception of payment,
Subject to payments.
subject to payment.
Okay.
Yeah, I second. Oh.
Made and seconded, all those in favor? Aye.
You drink at the library now.
Now.
But only for 19 hours.
I can do it.
I'd like to make a motion for.
Chief will drive me home.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Class F liquor
19-hour
license.
license.
And this
Special event.
actually can just be approved subject to payment because Chief did give his blessing on it.
Subject to
He
payment.
was on vacation, so.
I used to read books at the library.
You approve, Chief?
Actually, it's at
I
a
do.
church.
They meet the requirements of the law, and this is an annual submission, we've never had any problem.
Right, yeah. You don't get,
Just be
Yeah, right?
no wild book people?
What's that, no what?
No wild book people?
No.
Okay.
Surprisingly, the wine doesn't bring them out. I don't know.
Make a motion to approve the request for the Langworthy Public Library for a Class F liquor license subject to fees.
Can I ask a question?
Made
Was
and
Seconded.
I'm
seconded.
sorry, my apologies.
Okay.
Isn't
Discussion?
Langworthy in Hopkinton, or am I just confused?
It is,
Yes,
but
it
they're
is.
using property in Richmond.
They're using a,
What are they using? Wait, you know where, Chief?
Wood River Baptist Church on Gooseneck,
the old one.
85.
Okay, so they're not using Iva's house this year?
No.
Okay, all right, so.
She throws a mean party.
Okay.
Yeah,
She does.
The motion was made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unfinished business is consideration of request from the preserve at the Boulder Hills for retroactive relief of fees.
Is Paul Mahalia just there, here?
Fees.
I think he left 2 hours ago.
Did he ever come?
Glad you guys said be here at 6. Can you be here at, Paul, can you be here at 6? Yes, Mr. President, I'll be here at 6.
They didn't tell you to be here, they said, can you be
And he's
here,
still
Paul?
over here.
Can you be
3
here?
hours
I said
later.
at 6.
We have a flexible schedule. We're on a flex text.
So,
Okay, so what are we doing
I'd like-
here, Madam Attorney?
You asked Juliana to calculate what the potential rebate would
Right.
be. And I believe that she did that.
Yes, we have that.
Yeah. If you are going to approve the request, I would like to request from Mr. Mahilides that he agree to accept it as a credit toward future applications rather than a check in the mail.
That exactly was going to be a question I was going to
Yeah,
ask.
where are you gonna get the money?
He's with the program.
Okay.
I'm making another application for master plan in 2 weeks, so.
That'll
Can I,
work.
can I ask, is it any fees, like a building permit fee?
No, this is just the land development
Application.
application fees, yeah.
And
So we
this
don't
you-
have control over those other
And it
ones.
would be credit over 20 years, right?
Well, as long as it takes them to spend the
Yeah,
money.
I'm okay with it.
So we'll have to make sure, who will be keeping track of that, Dave or, yeah, Marcy?
I'll keep track.
Yeah, I got a funny feeling you will.
Well, on your end, yes, but on our end,
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for retroactive relief of fees to
In the
the
form of
preserve
credit.
Boulder Hills in the form of a credit.
For what kind of, whatever it is?
It was,
Did it specify the amount?
it did specify in the,
there is an amount. The over the cap total was, you go by the over the cap total,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
$22,637.50.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's the figure you need to have in there.
Yeah, we need that figure.
I already got it written down.
Okay.
Mark just needs a second.
I'll second.
All right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm staying till the end, I'll be.
Might as
You
well.
came this far, what the hell?
We're almost done anyway, so okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
New business, we have a request from National Grid to place a pole on Central Street. Those of you who don't know where Central Street is, that's across the street from the state police barracks, I believe. It's that little street that goes off down to the pond there.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the request from National Grid for pole placement on Central Street according to their plan.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
I'd just like to see them replace the pole that's over near the Meadowbrook Gardens that sits at a 45-degree angle.
What are you, Henry Oppenheimer?
Yeah, I know.
That thing's a hazard, and you know how much
Why are we
stress is
asking
on
them?
that?
Why are we asking them?
Every time National Grid had a request for a pole placement, Henry would go on for 15 minutes about double poles. Why do they have those damn double poles? Why
Yeah,
don't
why
they
do
take the
that?
double poles
Well,
out
you've
and
got
put a single pole?
you've got the tilted one. You
Those
you
two.
have.
So who actually here is channeling?
It's a double pole.
I feel my fleece.
It's a double pole.
So why are we asking them?
I failed to see the relevance of that discussion
Okay.
in terms
Sorry.
of what we're supposed to be
Okay.
discussing.
Sorry, Mr. President.
Okay.
I'm all set.
I wanted to ask Scott, I usually has some input on this. Everything kosher with you?
As of Sunday, the new pole was not installed, so I recommend approval.
Okay. So the motion was made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consideration of request from the Conservation Commission for payment of Sumco Eco Contracting for Heritage Trail work. Heritage, he's there. Yes.
Yeah, so that is what's being requested is a change order. We had gotten since we had the funds available in our overall budget, we wanted to add the parking area associated with the trail. So we thought that was a good expenditure of our funds, and so essentially it's a change order that we're seeking approval by you guys.
So that's a parking area.
Yeah, it's a stone dust parking area, so it holds about 4 or 5 vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been built, and in essence, that's a change order request. We stay within the budget that we have.
And
I
that's,
should say the funds
this
we
is
have.
part of your budget money?
Yep.
So there's no special request?
Yep.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the request for the Conservation Commission for payment to Sumco Eco Contracting for Heritage Trail work.
I second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Update from the EDC, and that is why Mr. Woodmansey is here tonight.
Are there any specific questions that you want me to address?
Well, I'd like to, I've been looking at what's been going on, and I'm very concerned with what I see as far as the last two sets of minutes. I never got a chance to look at the agenda, but the last two sets of minutes were almost identical. I don't see much going on. We've missed a lot of meetings.
Sure.
As I understand it, you meet mornings and evenings?
Well,
Or,
sorry,
I don't know,
let me
I'm
interrupt.
asking.
We generally meet mornings.
Yeah.
We've met a couple times in the evening to get a meeting in, but for the last 2 years, we've been meeting in the morning. I can give you a little bit of background as to what's going
Please.
on. As a 6-member commission, we have to have 4 people there to have a quorum to have a meeting. From December through March, we only had 4 members. So every time one of us could not make a meeting, we had to cancel the meeting. We had a couple of workshops because we had people that were going to be there, couldn't make it at the last minute. Based on what we were looking at and the fact that the previous chair was one of the people that had to leave, I didn't feel like meeting just to meet was a good use of everyone's time. So I tried not to make us stick to the meeting schedule if we didn't have something concrete. We did meet in May, and we would have met in July, but based on the fact that I knew that I was coming here, I didn't know what the charge would be from you guys tonight, and I didn't want to meet for 2 hours just to find out that there was something better we could have spent our time on. So I didn't have a July meeting.
Okay.
June we had travel issues, but we have had 2 people reappointed, so we are up to 5 out of the total 6. So, you know, it's a much easier meeting schedule at this point to get a quorum there.
Do we have to be, is it a requirement to meet in the morning? Can you meet in the evening? I mean, most people work. So a morning meeting is just, we're not getting much out of the EDC. If you look at the last budgeted amount you got, that the EDC has had, there's no money spent. There's nothing happening. I want to, when we have committees, we put people on the committee who are going to work on their area of expertise.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think and hence the reason that some of these people have left, I think that people felt like their contribution for lack of a better term, maybe falling on deaf ears, or they were kind of, you know, no matter how hard they worked, they were not going to get anything accomplished to their goal, and they had other things they wanted to spend their time on.
Understood.
And so I think, you know, with that in mind, we have, we definitely have, you know, wandered a strange path. But we do have some things that are nearly ready to be delivered. I mean, they're going to take some more work. We actually have a WordPress website that is nearly complete, along with, it's been referred to here as a brochure, but basically some propaganda to disseminate to people who would want to know why we would come to Richmond. What do we have to offer? What's our, you know, demographics? What's available? Who our contacts might be? Where to go for, you know, licensing and stuff like that. So we are moving forward on some of that stuff.
Okay. These are all good things.
But one thing I wanted to, what came out of our May meeting, what we would really appreciate is if we could set up some sort of, on separate time, a workshop or whatever that includes council members, planning, and the EDC, so that we can make sure that what it is we're spending our time and focusing on is stuff that's going to drive towards where the council and planning want things to go. Because we could come up with something great, and if there's no purpose for it, then what did we really accomplish?
Well, but that's just what I'm trying to get at. I mean, the EDC has been around for a while. We've been here for 7, 8 months now, and we haven't heard from the EDC about anything.
May
I finish?
Yep, sorry,
speaking?
yep.
So I am very concerned that we've got a body of people that we've got looking at the economic development of Rhode Island, or of Richmond, I mean, sorry. And we're hearing nothing. And now you want to pull other groups in to get ideas for doing your job, your team's job. That's like the cart before the horse. I think that it would be better to come up with some ideas and then put those ideas forth to see if, the people that you mentioned would have any input. Because right now, I'm not seeing anything. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen any budgeted amounts being
Who's
used.
our council liaison? I mean, I'm just curious because, we used to have a council member at all of our meetings.
But why?
And so if that's an issue, maybe that's a bigger reason to address, one more meeting. I know we have some people that aren't available in the evening.
I'm not available. I wanted to be the liaison.
Okay.
Because I have a number of ideas, and us as a council, we've met with some business entities, and we've been trying some different things. I cannot meet in the morning. I have a 9-to-5 type of job that takes me out of the state for 10 hours a day, and so I can only meet in the evenings. I understand that. I think it would be a good idea if we all met, just so we're all on the same page. I don't see a lot happening either, but I see low-hanging fruit. I'll use it for example. People say, "Mark, where do you live?" I say, "Richmond, Rhode Island." They're like, "Where's that?" There's no sign out on Route 95 that says Richmond. There's one that says Hope Valley. There's one that says Kingston. But what about the town?
One that says Wyoming, too.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody knows where Richmond is. That's a really low-hanging fruit. I mean, we get a sign that says Richmond, people say, now that's where I want to put my business.
I'll one up that, if you want to talk about signs. As you leave the rest area, there's a sign that says, "Thank you for visiting Richmond." I don't really think that qualifies as a visit to
well,
Richmond.
maybe we can...
but that's also something that we're working on, getting materials into the rest stop, so that people know what's at that next exit, which is 500 feet away.
Now, we have 5 members. What is the 6th member? Does it need
the
to be...
The 6th member, at this point, would have to be a business community, a business owner in Richmond, because...
No, excuse me. They don't have to be I mean, yeah, all right, you're right. They have to be a business owner in Richmond, but they don't have to live in Richmond.
Right, exactly.
Have you talked to Paul Mahalis, right here?
Have you met
Seriously?
There you go, I'll help you.
Okay, he's on your commission now.
Put that on the agenda.
You gotta come again next meeting.
I think there's some formalities to that, but...
Put that on the agenda, Sarah.
But I mean, has anybody approached the gentleman that owns Vibco? He's got plenty of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he would jump on that.
I'm not either.
He might have somebody that works there, maybe one of his sons or something that he would send out.
Exactly.
Actually,
I mean,
I talked to the guy that owns the pizza restaurant over here, where Best Eaten Donuts used to be.
Yep.
Kimon.
He sounded a little bit interested that he might be, and he lives in Richmond besides.
So now I got to apply for the job.
But what I'd like to see is what I would like to see is what I envision is you guys asking us for more money in next year's budget because you're doing so much. That's what I'd like to see, and I'd like to be part of it.
And I think this is a very welcome discussion from our end to see that you guys want more out of us and want us to rise to some challenges, because I think, like I said before,
and I'd like to be part of rising to those challenges too.
because there's a commission, we're supposed to meet once a month,
Yeah.
with never really any, 1, results expected, or 2, what was put to good use with anything.
Yeah, I mean, we
I admit, I've been on the EDC a long time.
Yeah.
And over the years, some of the stuff we've done has been more, community building and oriented than really business or development oriented. And I think that we have, some people now on the commission and joining the commission that we could really do some better.
David, you ever see Joe Radish? Does he come to the meetings?
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
Oh, he's back!
I've been sitting there the whole time. I wasn't smiling.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be a catalyst. If I can help, if I can be involved, I'm a person with a bunch of energy, even if I showed up once a month or once a meeting and just gave my 2 cents and gave some words of encouragement, I would.
Your ideas, I think, would be great. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean,
great ideas.
I checked into
Tonight's
Amazon and found out that they're looking to build 100 warehouses in the country, all over the place.
We're right
Might
near the
be
gateway to
something.
Rhode Island. We got 2 highways going like that right through the town.
Are we gonna allow them to deliver by drone now?
I don't care.
Well,
I said, are we gonna allow them to deliver by drone?
we'll probably,
But that's
say no.
They're
to
going to
that.
be flying through our space. So
Hey, listen, we got the
Yeah,
airport,
somebody's gonna
guys.
be a piece of it.
We got Richmond
We
Airport.
got Richmond Airport, yeah.
That's right.
You know, so.
Your flight is 747 in
I
there.
was just gonna share with the council too, so I did reach out to Mark a couple weeks ago, and he was very receptive, so we're trying to have some conversations with, different developers and so on, so I shared with them, I had a conversation with John Aiello and his, developer, and I shared with some of the thoughts that, they wanted to try and do, so, I don't know if, Mark has had a chance to share that with you, as regards to Richmond Commons, which is, they're open, for example, to looking at age restricted, they're investigating some veterans type of programs where there's a veterans hospital, where there's guaranteed housing, so there's a lot of things on the table, so that's some of the things we've already started having the conversations. We've had conversations with the Commerce Department already, so trying to get Mr. Aiello's property visible again to the Commerce Group because it had fallen off the visibility track, and so that's one of the things as we work with the new planner. It's important that we keep Richmond on the spot at the state level, so that as they look at projects and look at job opportunities, that we're visible. Those are the things we've already started doing on the side.
Joe, David, you just had Paul say a good idea. Well, I don't know if you were kidding, but I mean, I think it's great at Amazon.
Amazon.
Seriously. I mean, that was a wonderful idea.
They want to build 100 warehouses in the country, so. And
something you guys might want to look at.
Northeast is a good spot.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for David?
Thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. We'll be in touch.
Please email me or call me.
Yeah, I'm going to email the group and let them know that we're going to try and transition to the evening meetings. I know it's not going to go over with everybody because some of us have been doing mornings for a long time.
Right.
But hopefully that will help,
I just can't. I mean,
build that bridge. No, I get it. I'm not sure that anyone on the council would have that flexibility. But if that's going to help, move things forward, then we can.
And David, you see Joe Radish telling me all said hi. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Anytime, just so you know more.
There you go.
Number 4, under new business, termination of the Gardner Road Improvement Study Committee. I can understand why we're terminating it, because Gardner Road is now an official road that goes all the way through. I took my ride down there last Sunday afternoon to observe and look at it. And
how was it?
It looked pretty good. I thought they did a fairly decent job.
You could drive right through it, Paul?
Scott, what do you think? You think they did a decent job? I thought so. I don't know.
Yeah, they obviously built it to their town standards, and it's, widened, it's flat, it's graded. There's been several complaints about speeding now through there.
Already.
Increased traffic in the area. I think Chief Johnson had put together a signage plan that needs to be instituted, but unfortunately we'll only be able to post our side of the road, and Exeter needs to do their half. I think that if things had gone the way they should have, we could have, planned for everything and been involved, and that didn't happen. I'm not sure. People keep asking what's going to happen next. We don't know. They never informed us that they were going to do what they did. So to try to see what their plan is, I would not be surprised to see some type of macadam finish put on top of it.
I thought the same thing. just a matter of time. It may not be this year, but it could be. It could be very well next year.
It's unfortunate that we both, we have co-ownership and couldn't meet, and, we had some very good meetings with our committee. We had asked for information. Our letters pretty much were unanswered, and I don't know what else we could have done.
Well, who closed the road in the first place?
The road was never closed. The
not
road
developed.
became
Never opened.
non-maintained.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and as near as I can figure, back then, the two directors couldn't agree on what should be done, so neither did anything, because one year, one town would want it maintained differently than the other, and if you read the file with the letters that went back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, one year Richmond wanted it done all the way through, the next it didn't, and then 2 years later it'd be vice versa. So this is not a new problem. So how do we, try to go forward when we have co-ownership or responsibility on the other sections? I don't know. We went up and swept the new paved section the other day. I didn't notify them we were doing it. I just went up and did it because the runoff from the rain and, the pavement that's there needed to be protected, so we just went and did it. So I really don't know what's gonna happen out there.
What's the posted speed limit, Chief?
Well, further north, it's 25, and further south, it's in that same vicinity. So we had talked about no through trucking, which is already posted for the King Arthur neighborhood. But frankly, we had more calls in anticipation of the road opening than we did after it opened. There's no concerns that once college kids figured out for URI come this fall that there's going to be an increase in traffic. But for the most part, really, there hasn't been much in the way of complaints, and we've been visiting there pretty regularly to do speed enforcement, but the volume of traffic is still pretty low. We took some standard readings with the variable message board that measures traffic volume and highest speed achieved, lowest speed achieved, and the greatest average speed. And then that was pre-open and post-open on the north end of Gardner. So we've yet to pull that data, but we're going to be looking at that to see whether there's a real increase. And we'll just keep visiting that location with the board to see if it increases as time goes on.
How effective would a couple of stop signs be on the road?
Stop signs?
It depends on
Just like
proximity to visible properties and daylight conditions.
Okay.
Generally, people will do the right thing if they think people are watching. If police are there, they really try to do the right thing. But when you have a remote stop sign in the middle of the woods and you're on a time schedule and every day you see no one, it might be a tap and a slower roll through the stop sign, but it's one of those things where you're going to focus your enforcement efforts based on highest probability of crashes and injuries.
Or a speed bump. Oh, no, those humps. You know what I mean?
Scott wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
Undulations.
Motion to terminate the Gardner Road Improvement Study Committee, Mr. President.
Okay,
Second.
made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. President, motion to approve Iva Lipton to the Charter House School Committee. Iva, you was falling asleep, we got you.
We're on the last one now, number 6, Mrs.
Number 5.
Number 5, I'm sorry.
Mr. President, this gentleman had a question about the Gardner Road.
Oh, I'm sorry.
His hand up.
Yep.
I'm the closest one to that open road that they just opened up.
Yeah.
And I've seen my property, I've seen more traffic in 3 weeks than I've seen since 1999. I see cars going 45, 50 maybe on the dirt lot. I don't believe there's enough signage there. We also need a stop sign, I think, at the end, at my end. There's somebody just plowed right through there. There is, I feel, a lot more traffic. Actually, I'm the one who's impacted the most by that being open. Because I'm the first house right there.
You're the first house at the end of that new section?
At the end of the road, yes, sir.
Yeah. You'll notice more other things as time goes on as well.
Well, I have noticed some slow-moving vehicles that sort of, I question.
Mm.
You know, I've seen cars now that we've never seen.
Mm.
I mean, it has changed a bit. I gotta say, it hasn't changed as much as I expected it to change.
Mhm.
And I would like to see some more law enforcement up there once in a while. That's,
Well, you'll know it's really popular when you start seeing the trash thrown along the side of the road, the liquor
Oh, yeah.
bottles, the cans, and so
But I'll-
forth.
I'll-
Dunkin'
Then
Donuts.
you'll know.
Yeah.
Are you going up there, Paul?
So, when they open my road, that's when I start
Really?
seeing all the beer cans and all the beer bottles and everything else like that.
So we've got,
It comes with the territory.
Motion to approve the amendments to chapter 2.20.
No.
No public hearing,
Yeah.
personnel of the Richmond Code of Ordinances, and authorize the town clerk to advertise the public hearing.
Seconded.
Meeting seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the last item that we have here is the consideration of a resolution encouraging the Rhode Island legislature to pass the 2018 budget. So,
I'd like to make a
do we-
motion that we,
we need to write that.
I'd like to make a motion that we write and send a letter encouraging the Rhode Island State Legislature to pass the fiscal year 2018 budget.
Seconded.
All those
We
in-
won't send them their tax money.
Well, the current, right now, we're operating under last year's budget, which is $300 million less than the budget that they're supposed to be passing, or they should have passed. So you can imagine what the biggest cut out of that is school money.
That's
You
why
know,
we need
school
the
money.
solar farm.
They're cutting all that out at this point. But anyway, we want them to pass the new budget, and we've got to put that in wording. Who's going to draw that up?
I
Sarah?
love how you look right at me.
Sarah, I wonder.
I wonder.
And the motion was made and seconded to do so, and we need to add to that motion that we're going to send copies to Mr. Mattiello, Mr. Ruggiero.
The usual suspects.
Yeah, the usual suspects in particular, and Gina Raimondo, the governor,
And our Senate and representative too, right?
and our representatives and senators.
Look who's back. He's still doing
Cooler water.
Just in time to leave.
Took a nap.
Where you been? We missed you when it came time for
We
your.
just put you on the school committee. You're on the school committee.
You can't.
Yeah, welcome.
All right, we have the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now that brings us to the public forum.
There's not much public left.
We have coffee.
Too.
Yes.
Can I retouch on our topic, even though you guys had a motion and closed it, because I know everything's technical?
Yeah.
I'm thankful and very happy that you're giving me the credit, but all I wanted to ask is, the way the assets are held at the preserve at Boulder Hills, there's different entities. So I wanted to ask that when we come in for master plan, because the new master plan that we're coming in for is for the preserve too, you know, because it's just kind of different. So I wanted to ask if the credit could be used for any of my related entities, if that could be put in the motion.
Well, we can't change the motion now, right? We can.
No, we
I don't
can't.
think the original motion
I'm gonna
specified.
send an email to Juliana tomorrow
Okay.
and tell her that that's what you want to do.
Because they're not owned by the preserve, they're not all owned the preserve at Boulder Hills. In fact, the check that you guys got was from MTM Development, because the preserve at Boulder Hills didn't own the preserve at Boulder Hills, MTM Development did.
Okay.
So the check that you got is an MTM Development check, which is a trust. So the Stefano piece that we just bought, that's the preserve 2. The Brightman piece is the preserve 3. The hotel piece is, you know, they're all these
Different
preserve-
entities?
They're all owned by the same.
Is the one
trust.
from UBS, you said last time you bought, is that?
That's
under-
called the preserve residences.
Where is that parcel? Is that on the same site as
I own that
UBS?
too. It's all, so now we have, it's around 900 acres that we have that are all contiguous, right in that.
Where's the UBS part? Where was that?
That was behind, that circles the Sailor piece. It's owned by the town.
Land Trust owns it now, next to it.
Thank you.
So you're gonna take care of that with the email?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah, just have a simple question, and I should know the answer, and I'm sorry I don't. How does the average citizen get something put on the agenda?
You submit it to my office.
Okay, and then it just goes on the agenda?
Well, I don't wanna say, I
The
mean.
town clerk and the town administrator decide what's gonna go on the agenda.
Okay.
And if they're not sure what you wanna put on the agenda or why, they'll call you up and ask you about it.
Okay, but, so in other words, just suppose, a citizen feels something's important, and you people say no, how do we do it under public forum?
Yeah.
Either that or contact a council person that you feel is sympathetic to your thoughts and have the council person put it on the
All right,
agenda.
It's 2 or 3 things I think should be discussed, and the community should be involved in, and we should get all the pros and cons, that's all. I mean, nothing important. So just write Sarah a letter then. Okay.
Better coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, is that what you're?
Sure, you're
Okay.
welcome. That'll be fine. Thank you.
Iva, you had something?
Yes, I think that by the length of this meeting, you should have more meetings in the summertime. I'm just saying.
To have more meetings in the summertime?
It's only because you only do about 4 hours.
I've just been saying for years now that you should keep your regular meeting schedule in July and August.
For July and August?
Yeah, she's a big advocate of 2 meetings a month.
I think so too.
Well, the public hearing alone
Correct.
was 2
Yes.
hours. If it
Yeah,
weren't
the
for
public
that,
hearing, right, you're right, Karen. That
Really,
public
that was
hearing was
wouldn't have
grueling.
been-
I don't
this
think
meeting wouldn't have been
we'd see that
outrageous.
again.
We don't see too many public hearings like that last that long.
I'm still waiting for them to jump us in the parking lot.
I think it's a good idea, though.
They're kinda rare.
To meet regularly.
The last one that lasted pretty much that long was the one we had on the discussion of Gardner Road, I think,
Yeah, I think so
a
too.
year and a half ago, or something like that. It lasted about 2.5
Who else gets a
hours.
vacation like this every year?
I
It's
gotta
also
stand up,
been
I'm not
5
leaving.
minutes.
I've got 13% left on my computer battery, so I'm
Yeah.
just,
It's also been 5 weeks.
Okay,
and not
How about on the iPad?
Collective bargaining.
Put on
We
the
gotta go
iPad.
to executive session, right?
You have to go to executive session for the police matter.
For the police matter.
You don't need to go to executive session to discuss
To
the
do the
DEM
other
case
thing.
unless you have any questions.
Yeah, yeah.
I can give you a quick update right now.
I like the letter you sent.
Oh, that was, yes, the letter from Mr. Marzak to
Mhm.
Mary Kay.
Yeah, I saw
I'm
that.
sure she wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
As you know, we filed a motion in Superior Court for an injunction, and we're asking the court to order DEM to go through the application process in both towns. The motion was assigned to Judge Richard Leach because he's on the motions calendar in Providence. Apparently, it's the most exciting thing that's happened to him all summer because he immediately sent us all an email asking for a conference. Before DEM had a chance to respond to the motion and memo, he wants to have a conference. So we're gonna have a conference with him on August 10th.
Okay.
Where
That's
does that-
awesome.
I've been out of town, and where does that stand then?
We filed a motion in Superior Court last week for an injunction against DEM to require them to go through the regular zoning and planning application process in both towns, and to not build anything until they have done that.
So they haven't started anything at this
No,
point?
and if they do now, they'll incur the wrath of the judge because he's already read the motion.
What is that for?
Thank you.
The Arcadia Visitor Center.
It's actually more
Browning
of an
Mill
office
Pond.
building on the
Browning
pond.
Mill Pond.
They could build it across the street and it wouldn't,
Yeah.
It would not have the impact that it's having
Yeah.
on Green.
We had an unbelievable incident, which hasn't come to light as just general business. The new visitor center that's in Richmond, so I own the property behind it, it's a 13-acre pond. And they came in, the DOT came in to they wanted to kind of clean up some of the detention basins, and they nicked, it's like a big stone headway, it's about 115 feet long. And they drained the pond. Literally,
Oh my God.
they say it's 8 million gallons.
Oh my God.
The hole that they put in it was over 100 feet long by over 13 feet deep. Now, if I did that as a developer, I would
You'd
have
be
been
arrested.
losing in jail. And the DEM still hasn't done anything to fix that.
And they know it, obviously.
Oh, no, they've been out there and out there, DOT's been out there, tried to patch it back up, it's leaking again. It's the pond that, if you ever go behind the visitor center, you'll see it, because there's a hole in it that's, I can't, my arm.
How long did it take it to drain, Paul, that? How quick did it drain?
About 4 days.
And where did it all go?
Yeah, that was my
The
question.
silt is on another contiguous property, went to the Pucas's property, created an unbelievable flood. Muck, flood, mess.
Not in, it's not in the papers, it's not in the news, I mean, this is, where's Cynthia Drummond when we need her?
Okay, folks, we need to go to executive session, so we have to have that motion.
I'd like to make a motion to go to executive session.
You have to say regarding something, don't
You
you?
have to, yep, you
Yeah,
have to say
it's
the
a police
subsection
matter.
of-
Regarding the
Executive session pursuant to Rhode Island general law.
collective bargaining litigation.
That's all you have to say.
That's it.
Okay.